Hello there, welcome back to the Random Show, episode number 75, with your host, AgostinhoZinga. Welcome back to the Random Show, episode number 75, with your blood friendly host, AgostinhoZinga. I hope you are doing well wherever you are tuning into this show. I hope you are doing well. It is a new year. This is a new year, new random show, new settings, new things. Hopefully the year has welcomed you with great abound and you are feeling inspired and motivated to attack, or like most people, you're just gonna go and continue doing the things that you were doing last year and make some improvements if you can, but for the most part, just keep trucking along, and you know what, I don't blame you. But we're back again, doing what we know best, laughing and snickering and all these LA type comedians, and enjoying ourselves with other bits and bobs on the internet that I find whilst I'm browsing the old World Wide Web. You know the vibes. As per usual with this show, you know what I do. Everyone I speak about on this pod or on this stream, obviously don't disturb or harass them. Just keep all the LOLs and the snickering and the LMAOs and the cry face emojis to this place. Don't go anywhere else and sort of spread that sort of stuff. We don't want people getting upset and getting in their feelings and whatnot. And that's what we're going to do going forward, isn't it? We're just going to laugh, we're going to have some good time, and we're going to try our best to enjoy ourselves with this little time that we have available. So we're just going to keep on smashing into a show. So why not get started and talk about something that's on the front of my mind, because it's just happened just now in actual real time. The thing that's been occurring with flipping Flakko, who is one of the co-hosts on No Jumper. Just to give you a little bit of background as to why this is so hilarious in my POV. If I'm not mistaken, Flakko is kind of in a very short space of time become one of the most unliked content creators or co-host on No Jumper for numerous reasons. Most of them are sort of self-inflicted. He's not the best communicator in the world. He has a very aggressive stutter. I have a slight stutter, and I know how annoying it can be for some people to listen to me struggle to spit out certain words or sentences. But he has a really aggressive stutter to the point where he's like, his face is construding and stretching and going all sorts of different ways. And then generally just his point of views on hip hop and on culture, the way that he refers to black people or the way he speaks about black people in some way, shape or form hasn't necessarily endeared him to the No Jumper community. And just his general demeanor, right? He's like a really, you can see him on the screen here. He's not exactly Denzel Washington, right? But he has some very surprising and deranged, delusional ideas of what he looks like. And it can kind of get grating after a while. I think sometimes having self-confidence is one thing, but I think being delusional is something that most boys don't really stand for. I think maybe women maybe tolerate it a lot more. I feel like, right? This idea that, I think I shared this story beforehand where I went out one time to a club somewhere and I got talking to some random girls in the smoking area. And like I do, I was trying to be the center of attention and try and stir some debate and some LOLs and some laughs in the smoking area. And I said something along the lines of if you had all the money in the world, do you think you could have the ability to look as hot as like a Rihanna or something, right? And I think the conversation was around maybe makeup and girls feeling that boys with beards, when they have a beard, it kind of makes them maybe 2 to 3 times more attractive than they would be without it. And then guys kind of hitting back and saying girls, if they didn't have makeup, they wouldn't be as attractive as they look. That sort of debate. A little bit childish, a little bit base level, fundamental, cringy type of stuff. But when you're out and you're a bit juiced and you want to be funny, and you kind of stir these debates up. And I remember a resounding majority of the girls around me were basically saying yes. And to a certain degree, you can understand why, because modern makeup nowadays is insane. There's loads of things that they wear, especially women, in terms of stuff like Spanx and waist trainers and whatnot, that can snatch you up and make you look a lot more pleasing to the eye, or maybe make you feel more comfortable wearing certain outfits, which would definitely make you look better. The the makeup tutorial obviously game is obviously crazy. The hair game is crazy. The fashion things with stuff you can get on Shein is nuts. So there is some basis into why most girls out there could legitimately think they could look as good as Rihanna if they needed to be. for sure. But let's not deny that the wide majority of them couldn't, regardless. But I think for some reason with guys, we don't have that level of delusion. We don't stand or tolerate it that much. We get a little bit like, what? How could he be that delusional? It doesn't make any sense. So I feel like maybe that's why it kind of gets under people's skin when Flakko's out here saying he's a joint and he's a 10 and he can get this person, he can get that person. Nah. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen in the slightest. So people don't necessarily like that. It doesn't necessarily go to, well, oh, what's that MMA nut? Yo, dude, did you see Dana slap video? His wife on YouTube, Disney going to ditch him. Yes, mate, I saw that. That's gonna be the next thing I'm gonna talk about after this. I saw that. That is absolutely nuts. I don't think Disney's gonna ditch him. I don't know. I feel like Dana's got like what's that thing called? His job is safe forever. I feel like he's done way worse things to like. I think he said a lot of, don't get me wrong, maybe he hasn't done anything physically that's as bad as hitting his wife on camera, but he said a lot of things that I feel like if you were a serious corporate company, you would have moved on from him in this, a long ago. Because again, in general, Dana's a distraction for the UFC. I've always said that. I think the moment Dana leaves will be the best because he's such a character in himself. He kind of takes away the attention from the fighters, and the exorbitant amount of money that he's on, considering what the fighters pays on as well, is always a bit disconcerting. But overall, if the UFC wants to be a professional sporting organization, you can't really be having this like Vince McMahon type guy leading the organization. Just doesn't look that great. So I don't know. I feel like if he would have got fired, he would have got fired already. If he hasn't got fired now, if he didn't get fired then, firing him now for hitting his own wife is a bit weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, maybe the hit is a lot more serious than saying some mean things to journalists and fighters. Who knows? But anyway, go back to the Flakko thing. Crazy situation that's kind of transpired with Flakko now, where it's being debated and people are calling in from parts of Philadelphia where they're basically accusing Flakko of not being from where he's actually from. So this guy might have lied from his origin story. From what he said originally, he said he's from North Dakota, but now there's people on Facebook. I don't know why this happened. I really feel sorry for him in that regard because it just feels like he got exposed out of nowhere. But for some reason, this random dude decided to post up on his Facebook, "No jumper, why y'all do Frederick like that? I really want to know why he claiming he from North Dakota when he really from Penwood, which is somewhere in Philadelphia." And then people in the comments are chiming in. A guy called Jabari Smith says they don't know him. Why would he do it to himself? Joe Fletcher says, "I just watched a video of him talking about life he never lived. Like I ain't watched that man grow up." Honestly, this is legitimately one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my entire life. A person, what's another person saying here? "Nigga, why are you on YouTube lying? It's crazy because he just interviewed a Philly nigga and knew too much, like he been here." Another screenshot here saying, "Where's his at? I want to see this." I posted a video saying, "I'm watching this shit in disbelief. I'm happy for him though, but damn, bro." So this is really confusing to me. And I think I've spoken about this prior because I've spoken about Brendan Schaub's tendency to lie all the time. And I think if you're a woman or if you're someone that's not really been involved in kind of like bro chad groups of boys, you wouldn't know this, but there's definitely an archetype of a guy that exists in each crew of friends that you probably have been a part of if you're watching the stream, that there's always a guy in your group that lies, and they usually lie about the most nonsensical things, right? Things that don't necessarily add anything to any conversation. They don't make you look better. They don't improve your reputation. Just unnecessary lies. And I think Flakko is a certain level of that. But the issue with some people like that, when they lie about such nonsensical things, it causes them to question nearly everything they say. Literally everything. You can't believe anything they say if they're going to lie about something so dumb as that, where you're actually from. Because you'd imagine, his current line, or the law he tried to sell the no jumper people on, was that he's from North Dakota. And I guess the whole point about kind of cosplaying like he's from there and he's born and bred there is that would maybe explain why he's so socially unaware or weird around what you deem to be like, street black people in America. Maybe he's not grown up in the hood, he's not really from ends. All these sort of things will maybe excuse why he comes at, certain hip-hop topics with a very weird, naive, almost obnoxious point of view, because he's definitely not from there. He's not been outside in any way, shape or form. So it can add to his lore. But still, you would think about it, considering hip-hop's, connection to Philadelphia, you would imagine if you're going to be a hip-hop journalist or a hip-hop influencer, a hip-hop commentator, you'd imagine saying that you're from Philly would actually give you way more rep than it would be saying you're from North Dakota. You definitely get a lot more mileage that way. You could definitely angle it in the way that, you know, you were from there, but you got brought up in another place, but that's where your roots are. That would actually sell you a lot better. So I'm not even sure why he lied in that respect. The only other thing I can think of, which is maybe the really end point of this, if you really take this to the end point, would be that he wanted to lie about where he's actually from, because the reason why he had to move to a place like North Dakota was something a bit sketch. Like, I don't know, maybe he might have snitched on something, maybe it's some witness protection thing. That would be the only reason why I can legitimately think somebody would want to lie about where they were brought up and where they're from. I remember, like I said, there's always an archetype of a dude in the group that lies a lot. That used to happen a lot, again, when we were in primary school back in the day, because there wasn't social media and stuff for people to call you out on, so you could lie. And also people used to lie a lot back in the day when you went to college or university, because you'd leave your little town and you go to another school in another area, and there you could kind of reinvent yourself. So if you were somebody who maybe got bullied, or somebody that wasn't the most coolest or wasn't the most outgoing, and you wanted to change things, you could go to this new location and reinvent yourself and become the person that you always wanted to be, but you were shy or you feel intimidated around people that you grew up with, blah 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 blah. So it could, that kind of lie could come from a good place. But the lie that Flakko is allegedly doing is just bizarre. It's just bizarre when you add that next to the whole mysterious, non-existent girlfriend that he allegedly has, who he sends money to, who he's never seen in person, who no one actually seen. There's no evidence that they're actually even in any sort of communication physically or even on the phone. Does she exist? Does she not? Who knows? If she does exist, she's just there fleecing him. He doesn't necessarily see it as a bad thing. It's just a really confusing and weird situation overall. But what it does show you, similar to what happened with Boston Richey and his snitch allegations, nowadays, especially with social media and the internet, lying is definitely lying about your upbringing or lying about key parts of your life just doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. People are going to find out, especially if you become high profile, they're going to find out. The only way you could lie and it'd be effective, I think nowadays, is if you lie with like oomph. You lie flagrantly and you know you're lying, and then when you get caught out, you just admit it and you just keep on moving and act like nothing happened. That's the only way I can think it lying. Like, that would legitimately. But I think obviously if you're a liar, most of the time when you're lying, you're doing it because you want to convince people that what you're saying is true. You don't actually want to ever get exposed. You're not actually even thinking about that. You hope that never ever happens. So that's not necessarily anything within your mind's eye in that regard. But I don't know, man. I just find it all so bizarre. Really so bizarre. Everything around this guy is just the weirdest thing. Every time you think he's suddenly, you know, become a little bit normal, a little bit more tolerable, he just reminds you why he's so unlikable. But personally, I just find him unlikable because he kind of looks up to and finds flipping DJ Academics to be like a mentor and somebody that he should be trying to model his entire career off of, which I always thought was weird. Not because DJ Academics is a bad guy, but more so because I feel like if you're a dude, you should always try and stand on your own thing. You shouldn't be out there trying to like copy somebody's path to success. His mannerisms, how he speaks, his opinions on things are basically just taken from DJ Academics. There's no real critical, rational thought there. And, you know, he's kind of landed himself in trouble with how he's interviewed that guy that DJ Academics doesn't like, the Saints and Sinner guy. But overall, it's been a really strange approach to hip-hop journalism. Like, come in, be controversial, ruffle feathers, say crazy outlandish things, and then your whole entire persona gets peeled like an onion. And then, of course, this incident when he kind of got spat on was definitely something that was definitely egregious and didn't go too well to kind of endearing him to the, you know, to the public at large, myself included. But I don't know. I'm just thinking in my head now. I'm literally thinking in my head, where would there be any scenario in my life where lying about because that's what essentially is lying about, what primary school and what secondary school, which is, I think the age is between, let's say, 3 to like 16, or maybe 3 to like 15, 13. Why would lying about those years be important? Because if anything, they don't define who you are anyway. Even if you were a loser, even if you didn't get bullied back then, you can reinvent yourself pretty easily. Take a couple of self-defense classes, you know, get a better haircut. Oh yeah, what's up? Happy New Year, Uche, to you too. Get a better haircut, improve your gums, you know, have a shower, put on some links, and you're definitely a new man straight away. It's not that big of a deal, literally. Like, you know, I went to a school where it was in a pretty rough area with some pretty dodgy characters, and not everybody that was there who was a geek or a neek left there being that person. They easily were able to reinvent themselves over time. It's not hard. Most guys have done that. I know I've done it in my own way. So this idea that, you know, that it can't be done, it's just nonsense. So I don't necessarily see, again, there's no lie in that regard. And also, even if that did happen and you were a geek, it doesn't count for much. Who cares what happened in secondary school? Who cares what happened in primary school? You probably don't even remember what your grades were in those flipping years of your, you know, in your life. So why would it matter what you were like as a person? So to completely deny that is really odd. The only thing I can think about, just thinking about it now, actually, as I said before, there's an archetype. I think every boy knows this. In every boy group, there's a boy in your group that just lies. And not, again, I'm not saying about, you know, money lies, like just really nonsense things, like small, minute things. Did you get a number? Yeah. Did you link her? Yeah, like little things, not even like the end. Like, it's not even like he's gonna lie that he smashed. He just lie about tiny things, like he spoke to her, but he didn't speak to her. He's gonna lie that, oh, I've got a PS5, but he doesn't have a PS5. Like, just really strange stuff like that. The only thing I can think about as a lie kind of thing, which I was thinking now, is that some guys like to kind of like just have a little bit of mystique in it into their name. So maybe he purposely lied with the hope that maybe somewhere down the line, if you become controversial or popular enough, people will want to maybe learn more about you, and then they'll find out along the way that everything isn't as it seems. And that could be another kind of thing to add to, oh my god, this guy's so crazy, he's so weird. Oh look, we find this other bit of detail about him. Maybe that's another thing. I don't really know. But if it's me, that's one of the weirdest lies I've ever heard in my entire life. Who would lie about not being from Philly, like, you know, said kind of claim North Dakota of all places. I watched Fargo. It doesn't seem like the most coolest, hippest place to be in the world. Seems kind of boring, and you're also at risk of being murdered, right? But I don't necessarily get it. I really don't. Why would you want to be known for being from North? Maybe as well the North Dakota thing, or maybe the North Dakota thing is like him trying to claim it to be like a badge of honor. Like, I'm from North Dakota, I'm gonna have North Dakota on my back, because Philly's already, you know, Philly is basically Meeks. He can't claim Philly. It's either Meeks or Lil Uzi Vert. So he has to kind of do the other thing and be like, okay, cool, let me be North Dakota guy, so I can kind of rep for that side of things. I'm not really too sure, but regardless, it's going to be peak for him. There was a guy that called in earlier at No Jumper who basically aired him out, and I think the last thing I heard was that the guy said something like, oh, Flakko was arguing, saying, yeah, I'm not from Philly, you guys are lying, I'm from North Dakota, I've got proof. And that guy was like shouting him, saying, Frederick, like calling him by his first name, which you know somebody when you don't call them by their internet pseudonym, you call them by their first name, like legal name. And he said something like, oh, I'll bet you any amount of money that you don't know Mr. Williams, I think it is, some teacher they had in school. And then as soon as he heard that, he mysteriously hung up the phone. So the threat of betting money that if he tagged Mr. Williams on Facebook, he would remember him, just kind of completely got him off of it, and he didn't want to be part of it anymore, which is absolutely insane. But I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it. I don't understand people lie about certain things like that, but I guess, you know, there's some guys out there that don't necessarily like whatever version of their life story they have out there, and they want to sort of change it. But yeah, it's going to be peak for him. It's going to be peak for Flakko going forward, because if anything, this is just going to make things way worse for him at No Jumper than it already clearly is. But hey, it's something he has to deal with, isn't it? So let's talk about everything that everyone's been talking about. Have you guys seen this? This is obviously the news that's on the docket at the moment, that's been spreading out Wi-Fi in the last hour or so. Courtesy of TMZ, Dana White nightclub fight with wife on New Year's Eve. Dana says there's no excuse. Honestly, man, are we surprised that Dana White hits his wife? Honestly, are we surprised by this? Can we say this? Like, let's be honest. Again, I'm not the most balls deep UFC fan out there. Some people might describe me as a casual. I'm just somebody that's a fan of the sport from afar, from just a, you know, a nice loose way. I watch most of the main cards. I like watching the prelims. I like watching the, you know, I like watching the Premier just to kind of catch some up and coming fighters that I probably haven't heard of beforehand, following some of the news on social media, especially places like Twitter and stuff. It's pretty decent. And some of the interviews are really good. That Brett Yakamoto, is it Yakamoto or Ukamoka? I forgot his name, that does some stuff on BT. He's really good in terms of interviews. Obviously, Ariel Helwani is awesome. Luke Thomas does some great work. There's the other guy who I like as well. It's got the logo with a boxing glove and a feather. He's pretty good on YouTube. It's a really decent sport to follow, especially if you've done some of it. I did some Muay Thai, did some MMA on like a Groupon little deal thing, right? And I obviously felt like Conor McGregor after a couple of months of hitting mitts and doing some sparring and regular drills. So clearly it captured my imagination. But one thing I've noticed from looking from afar has been that Dana White is clearly holding the sport back. In my opinion, always has been. Now, maybe the sport is being held back in its own regard because, you know, the pay structure and the pay in general is just awful. And I feel like if you're in America and you're having to compete with sports like basketball and American football and baseball even, it's just really difficult to attract top level talent to come and commit themselves to a life of getting kneed and elbowed and punched and submitted and strangled and stuff in an octagon with another man in underwear if you're not willing to pay them the going rate of other athletes in other sports. Doesn't have to match it, but somewhere around the region. But the fact that these UFC guys aren't necessarily even paid it's a base salary, but they're not paid that much in general, it just makes it difficult, I would imagine, for them to attract top level talent. Of course, it's improved over the years because there's still an opportunity for glory, especially if you are able to crack the top 15 rankings and even, you know, have the ability to grab the belt. There is big money to be made. But overall, for a kind of journeyman fighter at the UFC, you're essentially working a regular job, you know, in terms of a salary. Just the other day, we heard Paddy Pimblett say he got 12-12 for, you know, a fight that he had maybe a couple of fights ago or something along those kind of lines. And Paddy Pimblett is very well known, right? Very popular, despite everything that's going on with Ariel Helwani. He's got a lot of online clout. He's clearly got a big following here in the UK. He's clearly somebody that's super entertaining when he does fight, even if he's not the best in terms of technique or defense, right? It's not necessarily going to get him to the point where he's going to be able to win a title anytime soon with his chin in the air, but still, he's very entertaining, and you would imagine he's someone that's definitely worth his price of admission. If someone like him is getting deals for 12-12, just imagine what the other people are getting. And 12-12, if you don't know, and I've only just found this out recently, is basically you get 12 to turn up and 12 if you win, which, you know, is crappy money, 24 grand, because, you know, from the amount you have to pay your coaches, to you have to pay your food person, your strength and conditioning person, whatever else you need in terms of money, it's just not that much when it comes down to it. So, I feel like all that stuff has kind of been, I'm sure it's a UFC top brass decision, but I feel like Dana White's arrogance and refusal to even, you know, try to make the pay a little bit more equitable or get the UFC fighters to actually be employees instead of being independent crotch dressers, all this stuff is really, I feel like, left the sour taste in the mouth when it comes to Dana White and the UFC. And also his general just combative nature he has with the fighters. He just tends to have like favorites, and he antagonizes fighters, and if a fighter that he doesn't like has the belt, he makes it very known in terms of his displeasure. Just a very unlikable and really hard to root for guy. Just it, really. I know a lot of his stick that he gets is maybe overblown, but he just doesn't come across as the bestest guy in the world, which has always really made me consider why he's such good friends with Joe Rogan. Because Joe Rogan, you would imagine, if Dana White worked in the comedy industry and he treated comedians the way Dana White treats fighters, I don't think Joe would be that pleased, you'd imagine. But, you know, there's a little bit of a distance there because of the love he has for the UFC, not for Dana White. He obviously came into it because of the UFC, and of course, no, he came into it because his love of martial arts, but then him being friends with Dana White is why he went to the UFC. So maybe his loyalties are always going to be with the UFC and martial arts. But I always found that very interesting that they're kind of close friends, and, you know, Joe does go out his way not to really comment on fighter pay and whatnot, but that for me has always been my main issue with the guy. His favoritism with certain fighters, the fact that he antagonizes and clearly picks it, the fact that he's a main character also doesn't really make sense for me. He kind of makes himself part of the conversation way too often, carries himself a little, you know, pads his chest in the air way too high. Personally, for me, being somebody that's, you know, leading a group of, you know, trained killers, it feels a bit weird, but hey, maybe because of the money position, he feels protected. But I'm not going to lie, I'm not surprised by his headline. I don't know what to say. I'm not surprised that Dana White will be a guy that would, you know, hit his wife. I'm just not surprised, unfortunately. This is according to an article of TMZ. It says Dana White and his wife got into a physical altercation with each other on New Year's Eve, stunning onlookers in a crowded Cabo San Lucas nightclub. An incident Dana White says regretfully fueled by booze. Yeah, okay. Just explain to us why it happened. That's okay. And then you can get on with your job. Yeah, sure. The UFC honcho and Ellen White, who've been married for 26 years. That's only funny because of what, you know, happened between Dana White and Brendan when Brendan exposed the fact that allegedly Dana White may have also slept with what's her name? Ronda Rousey, when he said, "Oh, we are also what do you say? What's that term? When you slip with somebody else?" I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Or maybe it was somebody else, but I got the assumption that he meant Ronda Rousey. But even though, you know, there's loads of people posting clips of him on Reddits and stuff at, you know, casinos somewhere, you know, with the company of ladies of the night. I see, yeah, Eskimo brother, sorry, with ladies of the night. You know, he clearly doesn't give a crap about being caught outside with women that don't look like his wife. I've not really seen him hanging out with his wife too often. Maybe the coverage hasn't been there, but it's not been a constant thing. So yeah, it's just hilarious to see this. 26 years, you know. The couple and their group were in a VIP area above the dance floor when White leaned over to say something to Anne. She reacted by slapping him across the face. Dana immediately slapped her back in the face before friends jumped in and pulled them apart. And it all played out in plain view of the pages down below. So the fact that it happened like that would lead you to believe that most likely they probably have a lot of physical altercations. This isn't the first time they've both put hands on each other. Let's just say that. To be charitable to both people. What eyewitnesses in the club tell TMZ, Dana and Anne both seemed heavily intoxicated prior to the violence, and the video seems to bear that out. Because things went to 0 to 100 in an instant, seemingly no reason further, we are told the conflict was all over in less than a minute. We spoke to Dana about the incident and he admits that he and Anne had been drinking heavily, but quickly adds that no excuse for him to go physical. He told us, "You've heard me say for years there's never an excuse for a guy to put his hands on a woman, and now here I am on TMZ talking about it." And I bet he said that with a little smile. Imagine being the guy that says that sort of stuff knowing full well. The thing that's funny about it is that he's trying to make it seem like this is a one-off. But for me personally, having seen the video, which I have here, this doesn't look like a one-off to me. This looks like somebody who's had altercations with his wife in the past, and this is how he's dealt with them. Or when his wife has said something that he doesn't like, this is what's basically occurred. This is only my opinion. I'm just alleged. Don't come out here and sue me. So let's play the video here. This is a clip taken from, I think TMZ took this. Just to sound off so I don't want to get claimed. You see them arguing there in the VIP section. She slaps him and he slaps her back. Push each other. They get split up. They're tussling. The only thing I can say, to be charitable to Dana White, the slap didn't look super hard. It looked like she slapped him way harder than he did. I know it's difficult to say that because she's a woman, but she really swung her arm back to hit him, and he kind of just reflexively sort of slapped her. But my main issue with this is that this is his wife. Yeah? This is his wife. If this is some random Jezzy, right? Some random lady of the night, maybe you could argue it. Maybe you could argue that interaction of like, I don't know you, why are you hitting me? Why are you touching me for, right? Because in that respect, that whole conversation about men not hitting women should probably be out the window if it's just a stranger comes and hits you. But if it's somebody that's your friend, somebody you're dating, somebody that's your wife, the mother of your children, you'd imagine the physical part of things would be something that would be the last, maybe not even the last, it wouldn't even be in your mind. You just want to restrain them and like shout at them and maybe, you know, get really shouty and scream in their face like to calm down or something. But I wouldn't think my first reaction would be to hit them personally, unless my relationship was always like that. Do you know what I mean? People saying, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, my relationship has always been like that. Whenever we have conflict, we end up slapping each other. But I can't think of any other scenario in my entire life where hitting a woman like this, especially somebody that you're married to, makes any kind of sense. It just doesn't to me. It really, really doesn't. Like, I don't see anything that could make this. Like, what did she say? Oh, why are you looking at that woman? Who are you texting? Why can't we go home yet? Can I order another drink? I wanted a Birkin in this color, not in that color. When's my Ferrari truck coming? It's not even out yet, but I want it now. Like, what could they be arguing about in a nightclub? A couple that's been married for 26 years that would need them to fight like this. And sometimes I'd imagine as well, if you've seen people who've actually been, don't know if you guys have seen this before, but I've seen relationships, people who've been in relationships for a long time who argue a lot towards the end of them maybe breaking up. Sometimes what they'll do, because they're embarrassed about how it looks, they'll usually leave where you're at and go argue somewhere else. So like you see somebody that's been in a long relationship and it's getting to the end where they're being very toxic to each other and arguing and they don't know how to break up yet, right? What they would do is that they would like pull each other to the corners and like shout at each other and point, and it'd be like a weird silent kind of fight. But it would never get to a physical part of it. It would never get physical in the slightest way, shape or form. So it makes complete sense that in this regard, I think the ease at which this happened on both sides is definitely telling me that these guys hit each other often. But it's more concerning to me that Dana is hitting his wife in public in a Las Vegas nightclub like this. This shows this guy has got a bit of a screw loose. Like, let's be real. And it also is quite interesting that the same guy who kind of bullies and intimidates fighters with fighter pay, bullies and ostracizes journalists who basically have to kind of cower at his feet if they want access to whatever certain things, and the guy that essentially acts as if like no one can touch him is also the same guy that goes home and hits his wife, innit? It's no surprise really. A man with like the principle, the moral compass of the worst person you can think of will be someone doing this. It makes complete sense. So I wonder what John Jones is thinking. That's what I'm thinking. What's John Jones thinking right now? John Jones must be laughing his head off watching this sort of stuff, because he must be like, it must be like that kind of meme, man, that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing at each other. But it also might explain why Dana's been so forgiving and willing to turn a blind eye to, some UFC fighters really horrendous outside of the octagon accusations or charges and stuff. He's able to turn a blind eye because he knows behind closed doors or away from the cameras he gets up to some mad stuff also. He knows that. So who is he to tell people to not do X, Y, and Z? That might explain the reason why he's like that, honestly, because you think of something like a Greg Hardy when he came to the UFC. It was just such an unnecessary level of scrutiny that the UFC didn't need to have. He was never going to be a champion. He was never going to be good enough to even crack the top 15. He was never going to be good enough to just be on a roster flat out. So why go all that way for somebody who's got convicted of, domestic violence to the point where he got kicked out of the NFL, to bring him into UFC just for what? What did he do? He ended up getting, kicked out anyway recently. But it was such a waste of time. And I feel like a lot of that has to come from somebody having, somebody like this who hits their wife would be also willing and open to maybe hiring a person like Greg Hardy and being willing to turn a blind eye to all the things that he's done. But this is wild. This legitimately is wild. Now, Disney does own the UFC now, ESPN, Disney, whatever. So there is some conversation out there. Some people have been accusing some people have been saying in the chat that Disney might fire him. I've always said for the longest time that I think if the UFC does want to progress to the next level, they have to get rid of Dana White, and they have to get to a point where they're paying fighters a fair wage and they're not independent contractors. But you have to get rid of Dana White to do that, because he's going to be one of the people that's going to be staunchly against it, because he's just a bit of a knob that way. And also he's just too much of a Vince McMahon main character energy for a sporting organization. He's someone that's willing to kind of be the corporate quote unquote shield type guy and just kind of, pop out when needs to be done and just disappear into the distance when, it doesn't need to be heard. But clearly Dana White loves the attention, loves the limelight in a classic promoter sense of the thing. And the only way they're going to move forward, I think, as an organization, to the next level. They've done well so far, in spite of, the organization being run a bit dodge. But if they want to get to the next level, you have to get rid of Dana. But Dana also has done, immeasurable good to the sport, to the organization, right? He's kind of definitely been one of the people that are responsible for what the UFC is successful at this point, besides, the Fertitta brothers and the money they obviously put in it and whatnot. But he's definitely, contributed his fair amount. But next stage wise, you can't be having something like this. Come on. Really? Is this so? What? This is all fake? If that's true, that's still a bit weird. using your wife as promo for your slap contest is very, very strange, personally for me. Someone saying that's true. Someone saying Dana White said, "Oh, it's not. He's using it as promo for his flight league." Okay, let's see. Let's go to Dana White's Twitter page. If that's true, and he's admitted that, that's very, very bizarre. Your wife being up for it also is okay. Cool. Sorry, I was just about to check. I was about to check Dana White's account. What did he say anyway? What's Dana White saying on his Twitter? I'm about to check it to say, like, did Dana White actually say that? That would be actually mad if he did. But I find using your wife to promote a slap contest thing is really, really crazy. But let's just see what he said anyway. I'm curious to see what the man has said himself regarding the whole entire affair. But this is incredible. Oh Jesus! I'm sure maybe later on we might hear some music. So it'll be interesting to see how the UFC does respond to this, because surely you can't be having this. Surely not. But I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority thinking he's gonna keep his job. He'll be completely fine. I think if he didn't get fired or sacked for the other things that he said prior, I don't see why they'd want to come after him now for this. But let's see what he's posted on his own Twitter account. Has he made any public statement about it? No, nothing. So just a TMZ thing that he put out. But yeah, anything else said on TMZ before I move on? What did he say here? I don't want to play the video because it's probably not getting claimed. What did he actually say? He said that he is embarrassed by this horrible incident, and he and Anne have apologized to each other. He says they're good, but their biggest concern is now their 3 kids with whom they've already discussed the fight. Imagine being Dana White's kids and checking into social media thinking, oh, here we go again. Everyone's going to be harassing me because my dad's flipping awful. And then instead of that, you get hounded by people telling you, hey, have you seen the video of your dad beating your mum up in the nightclub? Oh, Jesus. Meanwhile, Anne tells TMZ Sports, Dana and I have been married for almost 30 years. To say that is out of character of him is understatement. Sorry, Anne. I don't... also, this is the thing that's to be... just to kind of nip this in the bud. This is why I refrain from talking about things concerning domestic violence in general, because unless the person who's the victim is ready to actually move on and lead that relationship, more often than not, they're usually going to go back. And you can make yourself look like a real fool if you try and get in the middle of it and try and save the person, because usually they're going to end up going back with that person, because clearly either they are, mentally in a place where they can't leave, or it's this relationship where unfortunately it's so toxic that this is what they do behind closed doors on a regular. And I think that's the case personally for me. Given what Dana White's personality is like, I can't imagine he has just some like meek version of himself, of a wife at home. I'm sure it's a spicy relationship, and for sure this happens on the often, but I don't know. It's just wild to think this is crazy. I don't know. I just think it's insane. This guy legitimately beat his wife in public at a New Year's Eve party in Las Vegas. Nothing like this has ever happened before. We don't believe you, Anne. Come on, Anne. We don't believe you. Don't even say this. Unfortunately, we are both drinking too much on New Year's Eve and things got out of control. But I legitimately don't think I'd ever get to a point where drunkenly I want to hit somebody I'm dating or somebody I'm married to, somebody I have kids with. It's like those guys on Call of Duty who would say, oh, the reason why I said nigger on a stream was because I was frustrated. I think that's what PewDiePie said, right? That's a standard white guy streamer excuse when they say nigger on the stream. Oh yeah, I was flustered, I was confused. Why is nigger the first word that comes out of your brain whenever you're under pressure and confused? Why is that the first word? Like, you know what I mean? That's pure cap, pure lies. So this is all nonsense. Like, we know you. It's not the first time you guys have hit each other, or the first time you felt, Dana White's 5 fingers to the side of the face. No way. Unfortunately, we're both drinking too much. We talked this through as a family and apologize to each other. I just hope people respect our privacy. Respect our privacy? Excuse me, miss. We just saw you get slapped in HD. Like, excuse me? Privacy? He's giving interviews on TMZ about slapping you in a nightclub. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I'm so curious. I'm so eager to find out what Brendan Schaub has to say about this. I can't wait to hear what Brendan has to say about this. Because Brendan's been trying to do this weird thing where he's trying to suck up to Dana to be his friend, but he's also done this thing where he fires back and tries to make, you know, weeks worth of content out of Dana, replying to him and saying I think Dana said like 3 words to him in this whole exchange. That makes sense or something, right? That makes sense. I think it's 3 words. Everything else has been like innuendos or stuff that's been suggested or hinting at sniggers, but he said 3 words directly to him, and Brendan stretched that for a whole entire week. But again, before that, he was trying to suck up to him. So I wonder what he's going to do now. Will Brendan use this opportunity to really show that he's loyal to Dana and defend him in public and try and get in his good graces? Or will he do the pylon and say domestic abuse, hitter of women should not be in charge of the UFC, a disgrace to the organization? I wonder what he's going to do. I'm really curious. How will Brendan approach this? Because this is a real prime opportunity to either kick the man that you hate, you know, while he's down, or to try and what's that word called? To try and earn his favor, by kind of sucking up to him and making excuses for something that's inexcusable. What is he gonna do? I'm really curious. What is he gonna do? But hey, it continues. Obviously, it's egregious. You know, hitting your wife in public, hitting your wife in any way, shape, or form is crazy. I think, you know, there's nothing in that interaction for me. I don't think there's anything, unless legitimately, like I'm saying, what could she have said to him that would have made, you know, hit okay for him to hit her? Legit, what do you think could have been said? I can't imagine it. I can't imagine anything that would warrant him slapping his own wife in public like that. That's just so embarrassing. That's the thing that's about it as well. It's really embarrassing for her. Obviously it makes him look like an absolute beast, but it's embarrassing for her. Like, legit, like, you wouldn't want to embarrass your wife that way. You wouldn't even want to. That's the thing I'm thinking. When you're out with somebody that you like, especially someone that's your wife, and they're getting too drunk and they're getting too belligerent, too violent, and they're saying crazy shit, you just don't want them to look bad. So usually what you do if you're a stand-up dude is that you'll try and get them home. So even if something like this does happen, it happens behind closed doors, but you don't want to have them looking crazy in the club. You don't want to embarrass them that way. So I can't even imagine a scenario where this makes sense, because clearly he wasn't trying to de-escalate things either. He was just standing there in the pocket waiting to hit back. And if anything, his slap wasn't that great. She actually winded her one back. I mean, she wanted him to feel it. But again, like, what could warrant this? I don't really know. It looks absolutely insane. They're there, and it's funny that somebody happened to record it just at the. Maybe that's the only thing I can be suspicious about it. To be charitable to Dana White, to be like a Barstool Sports employee who kind of is in Dana White's pocket, right? If I want to be a Barstool Sports employee, the only thing I could say to give Dana to give it a bit of rope, right, or to kind of cope and to put a cap for Dana, would be to say that this video seems to start exactly when they get into an argument. So what, you're watching the whole entire time you're in there, and your phone was recording the whole entire time? That's the only thing I can think of. But hitting the mother of your children in a club like that, like she's some any skank, is just wild. Even in any skank, I wouldn't do it to. I wouldn't legislate for. But this is crazy, man. This is crazy. Legit crazy, man. Honestly, legit one of the craziest things I've seen in my life. But it definitely explains a lot. It explains so much about him and how he's able to turn a blind eye to certain fighters' indiscretions outside of the octagon, and how he's able to make excuses for the most inexcusable things, and doesn't seem to have any moral principle, ethical compass. You know, if he makes money, that's all that matters. There's nothing else as sort of his guiding principle in terms of anything else. That's it. As long as it's not illegal, or it's kind of, you know, even legality is kind of a, you know, is a vague thing you'd say maybe in Dana White's eyes, allegedly. But I don't know. I think it's crazy. I think the whole thing is insane. Whether anything happens to him, I very, very, very much doubt it. I think it'll kind of get swept under the rug, and he'll be able to continue doing what he does best, you know, saving the UFC a bunch of money, making loads of money for himself, and just keeping the wheels turning on the bus round and bloody round. Yeah, which is gonna come. 6-year-old in the club is embarrassing enough, in it. Say that again. What are people saying here in the chat here? Dana White hit his wife. She said it's fucking illegal. Service saying Dana needs to bear help and you can get 50% off. Okay. Jokes there. More jokes from Severa Design. The thoughts of Severa Design do not reflect the thoughts of this stream. Yeah, I mean, let him cook in it. Let him cook, but I do not co-sign that. Eddie D says Schaub will make an entire show about it. It's comparable to 9/11. Yeah, true. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Dicey Dana, exactly. Definitely Dicey trick code because we can't say an F anymore. MMA Nut says Dana did what I've wanted to do to my girlfriend for years. Dana is a hero. Oof. I don't know, man. I don't know. Slapping someone like that, it has to come with some level of rage, like legit, like shut the fuck. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever got to that point with any partner that I want to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't get that serious really with me. I don't feel. I don't know. Maybe I'm unconventional, but I feel like if you get to a point where you're loving your partner and you display your affection and part of your love language is clenching your fist or opening your palm and hitting them with it, I don't necessarily think that's love, and I think maybe you should break up and maybe find some other people to date. Personally, for me, I don't think that's really any evidence of love in any way, shape, or form. Maybe I'm just being, maybe I'm being a P word or whatnot. But for me personally, I'd much rather be with somebody that I actually enjoy being with, as opposed to every time they speak out of line, I want to drop kick them or something or push them into traffic. That's not necessarily love to me. Just me speaking. For me, just me. I've never really understood it. I've had many friends that have had relationships where they're pushing girls out of the car. You know that kind of relationship. I've had a relationship like that where they get in arguments where guys are in the car and they push them out of the car. They slam the door. They're shouting throughout the entire house. They're throwing stuff out the window. When you start doing all that toxic stuff, for me, it's just a sign that it's meant to be ending. That's not a sign of love. How do you work through someone, burning your clothes, pouring stuff, stuff over your stuff, cutting your tires, scratching your car up, spitting on you, all these things? How do you get over that the next day? I don't know. Personally, for me, I don't know. Maybe the sex has to be really amazing for it to excuse that. But for me, I think it's proof that you're not compatible as people. Because I feel like if that person wasn't your partner, boyfriend or girlfriend, that was just a friend, you wouldn't be their friend anymore. If you met your friend, right? If you met your friend, think about it. If you met your friend that you like to go bars with and like to go restaurants with, like to go to cinemas with, and every time you met and you had a disagreement, you went to blows, surely that's not your friend anymore. Surely after 3 or 4 of those occasions where you're meant to go to the shopping mall and hang out and then go to the movies to watch something and then you're in the aisles literally scrapping every time, surely after the 3rd time you're just not gonna be their friend anymore because it's exhausting. You're covered in flipping popcorn and warm Coca-Cola and you stink like cinema carpets and you get escorted out or sometimes you end up in jail because of the fight kind of spills out into the foyer. Like you just want to not be their friend anymore. So why would you tolerate that with somebody that you're sleeping with? It makes no sense. But hey, who am I in it? Who am I? I don't know anything. I'm just a random guy from East London talking out my arsehole. What do I know? Anyway, quickly moving on before we move on to the comedy stuff. I want to touch upon this because I thought this was really heartbreaking. This is courtesy of DJ VLAD on Twitter, who I think we should. For the most part, I don't really enjoy his content. I'm not really somebody that advocates for him or think people should be going on his platform. But when it comes to police work like this, hint, hint, ha ha, he definitely is somebody you should listen to. And I think he's definitely, I would say, right in his assertion and maybe his opinions and maybe his, the people he's reaching out to have got some level of credibility because he seems to do a lot of kind of quote unquote police work anyway, where he's interviewed some of these rappers. But he said the following on Twitter. He said, DJ Vlad, so I just spoke to a lawyer familiar with the YSL case. If Young Thug gets convicted of murder, he'll get life in prison. Under Georgia law, he'll only be eligible for parole after 30 years. If he gets convicted for even one count of his RICO, he'll get 20 years. So it's looking so bad for Young Thug. And I'm conflicted because for me, as a big fan of his and a big fan of YSL in general, I don't necessarily want him to be in prison. clearly. But I was also somebody who didn't necessarily know about his street ties until very late. I always kind of just assumed he was just an eccentric rapper. I didn't necessarily know that he was heavy in the street like that until I started getting on certain forums and stuff. I started to learn some bits and bobs about him, and it all started to make some sense, right? About why this guy was so, eccentric and, and out there with his style and the way that he approached hip hop and whatnot. It would make some sense that that person would also be somebody that would get busy in the streets, because that's the only way that, street guys would have no problem kind of co-signing him, because although he might wear a dress, he might also have an Uzi underneath that dress ready to kind of buck it out whenever trouble rised up. So that made complete sense. So it kind of came a bit of a shock to me, but not a little bit. But you know what I mean? It was kind of like a thing that came after, but I'm more in it for the music. So as a fan, it's conflicting, because at one point you're like, free Fugger. But if he is responsible for leading this group, who's been responsible for countless amounts of hits and murders and whatnot, then you can't really say free him, because he may be legitimately guilty of his crimes. Especially when you think of all the plea deals that have happened in that group, right? All these YSL members who would be screaming on tracks, take it to trial, slime, and be doing all these amazing, cool handshakes and stuff that I flipping always loved, and just looking amazing, crewed out, and always rolling deep and being official. They've essentially all confirmed that YSL was a criminal organization as well as a record label. So clearly, any defense that he would have is just about music is completely gone. That defense is finished, it's over with. So it's looking unlikely that there'll be any sort of mistrial, there'll be any sort of scenario where we'll see Young Thug walking out and hugging a baddie and hugging Mariah the scientist, right? You know how Gunna came out and was hugging some woman with a massive BBL. I don't think we're ever going to see a sight of Thug coming out and hugging Mariah scientist and, I don't know, somebody else, and just kind of enjoying his freedom. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. And it's really sad, because I feel like, similar to Gunna, they both went in jail at the worst time possible in their career, just when things were really starting to go up in terms of commercial success. They've always been relevant and crazy popular within, the hip-hop circles of people who look like myself. But I feel like the general consumer didn't really care too much for Fugger or for Gunna, until their recent albums and performances. And then suddenly, obviously, you see Young Thug getting booked at these big festivals. It suddenly started to go really, really up. And it comes at the worst time as possible to get hit with this. But the only thing that you could say as a counter is that, judging from what I've been reading online, it's clear that Thug was doing the whole street life in accordance or in conjunction with his music career. So he's only got himself to blame, because I think most people, when you get into music, you're doing it as a way to make legal money. You might start off doing some dodgy stuff to get equipment, to get studio time, to what else? I don't know, whatever, just to fund your career. And then once you obviously have a career, you would imagine you would put the street life to one side. I know it's harder said than done. You can't exactly turn off the gangster card, the gangster switch on and off when you want it. But that would be the only way to have any kind of hope of trying to have a successful music career, because you want to put some distance between the things that you did and who you are as a person now. But the fact that he was continuing to do this is just crazy, considering his profile. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Andrew Tate stuff. Andrew Tate, for whatever reason, when you get arrested twice for human trafficking, you would imagine there's some truth to it. So maybe there is a scenario where when he was first coming up, he was maybe doing some of that dodgy, illegal human trafficking stuff. And then as he got successful, it's just something that hasn't been able to shake. Or he was doing like Young Thug was doing, and he was doing the Hustlers University, the legit money type of stuff, the legit cam girl stuff that's above board, but also doing the other stuff behind closed doors, using his connects and his profile to kind of get those deals over the table, which to me, I think is crazy. I think the higher your profile, the more legit you should be and the more distance you put yourself between any kind of illicit, illegal activity. I don't think that should be your main aim, because if your profile increases the possibility of getting hit by the IRS and by Uncle Sam and whatnot for taxes, just imagine what it's going to do for criminality. I'd never understood that. High profile artists and public figures being involved in crime just makes no sense. funding it silently in the background through shell accounts and subsidiaries and whatnot, whatever. Even that is going to get rumbled sooner rather than later because everything's going to be public record. And if the journalist is, worth their weight in gold, they're going to do enough digging, they're going to find out. But having direct links to you and a gang and being the head of it is wild. Like, absolutely wild. And putting that hits on somebody makes no sense. Like, at that level that he's at, like, what are you doing? That should be a thing where, like, because I've been in rooms with people who are like notable hip-hop artists and grime artists here in the UK, and when people start talking about certain topics, they just walk out of the room. They don't make a big fuss. They just stand up and walk. Like, I don't want to be in here while you're talking about this stuff. Like, I don't want anyone reporting I was here while you're talking about this move or this flipping, when you went and spun the block on this one or that one. Nah, I don't want to be part of it. They just pick themselves up and leave the room and go elsewhere, or just go home. It's happened plenty of times. So I can't imagine somebody like a Thugger who's infinitely more successful than anybody we have here in the UK to be doing, something like what he's been accused of. So I don't know, man. I feel bad for the guy, but I also feel like, if he did the crime, it's part of the punishment you have to face when you leave that kind of life of crime, in it. And you can't really be screaming free Thugger if legitimately he gets hit with a life sentence. Like, there is no free him. It's gone, man. It's absolutely gone in that regard. But hey, what can you do? So moving on, I saw somebody commenting on this, I think on the Reddit, and I also was thinking about it myself in general, right? And I was thinking, this goes out to a lot of my viewers out there who are from the States. I really want to hear your opinion on the chat about this. I was thinking in general about everything that's going on with the whole JRE extended universe, right? That I coined the phrase, the JRE extended universe, to describe all those people associated with Joe Rogan and whatnot. I'm thinking in general, right? Who from that crew of people, the Joe Rogan extended universe, is worth their price of admission? Who, as a comedian, would you be happy to spend $20 to $100 to go and see somewhere and trust with your night out? And that's not including drinks or transport or your outfit or any sort of illicit Class A material you want to take. Like, that's just you paying a ticket to go. Who would you trust with $20 to $100 to go and see them perform? Because I legitimately can't think of many people in that group that I would be happy to pay money to see, with the exception of Dave Attell, who's not really JRE Extended Universe, maybe Bill Burr as well, and maybe Chappelle. But again, is Chappelle really JRE Extended Universe? Not really. But who in that immediate circle of groups of guys would you trust to see? I got a flyer here, right? People here saying in the chat. People are saying Bill Burr, Harlan Williams. So people are saying here probably Ari. Uche saying probably see most of them live. Oh, Shane Gillis' new one, the one under. Actually, Uche, for you've seen them all live. Who would you say has been the best one from you've seen? Because I've only seen Chris D'Elia live, I think, from that group. When I went to LA ages ago at Laugh Factory. And he was a lot better live than he is online. But I still wouldn't pay to see him again. And this is prior to the Diddler allegations and whatnot. But he was much better live. But again, I wouldn't ever see him again. And that's the only person I saw. And I wasn't that impressed. But I can't think of any, man. Like, who legitimately would be worth the price of admission from this entire crew of guys. Like, they're all kind of crap, which makes me think to myself, right? Maybe a real mark, because for the longest time, Shane is above Jerry. Yeah, for the longest time, Joe Rogan's had this kind of hold. Okay, which is saying the best were Bill Burr, THEO. Okay, Theo Vaughn's a good one. I reckon I'd trust him with $20 to $100 of my money for sure. I trust him. I think he'd put on a good show. Brad Williams, is that Brad Williams the short guy, the small guy? What do you call it? How do you call it? What's the political correct term to call them? Little people, little person. Is that Brad Williams? Dan Soda and Sam Morril. Okay, cool. Sam Morril seems like he'd make me go to sleep, but maybe he's gonna be good. Dan Soda for sure, I think it'd be funny. But I'm thinking in general, for the longest time, Jerry or Joe Rogan essentially had a real stranglehold on the scene in terms of, like, if he didn't stamp you, then you weren't legit. It felt like, even though it's not the truth, because if you actually listen to Jerry, you know that he bigs up a lot of people in terms of comedy that he likes, that he's never interviewed on the show, or that he's probably never going to have on the show. He's not really afraid to mention people special that he's watched that he's a big fan of. But it felt like a lot of the people that you would imagine are successful or funny, they had to be friends with him. Right? That's what you'd imagine. But I'm starting to think now, if you're actually looking for somebody funny to go and watch, it's actually more important that they aren't associated with Joe Rogan. Like, find somebody who hasn't been on JRE, find somebody who isn't part of the JRE extended universe, find somebody who wasn't a part of this old Death Squad. Remember how redacted that was, right? Death Squad. These guys legitimately thought they were murdering to the point where they called themselves the Death Squad. Of course, Rogan's in the middle, right? Right? Like, that's probably what you'd go to say if you went to actually find somebody that you thought was legitimately funny and you went to support them. Try to find somebody who isn't associated with the Rogans, because I can't think of many guys in that crew that are funny. And a lot of it, I reckon, is the fault of podcasting, weirdly enough. Podcasting has been very successful and lucrative for a lot of these guys, and has basically extended a lot of their careers, or given them careers that they probably would never have had if they didn't have podcasts. But I think it's also hampered their comedy, because you get to listen to them a lot of the times on a podcast 3 times a week, maybe more, maybe less, and you enjoy their humor on there. You get used to a certain type of humor from them, and then when you see them on the stage, it's like, who the hell is this person? I remember that's the first thing I remember when I saw Chris D'Elia's special, and I actually saw him in real life, because I've listened to his podcast again prior to the allegations. When I was actually listening to his podcast, or a fan of the 10-minute pod and a fan of him early days on The Fire and the Kid, the first thing you notice when you see Chris D'Elia perform live is his voice and his mannerism. He starts that, he does that kind of like infantile, like that kind of baby voice thing, and he does his weird mannerisms, this weird, like, you never see him do on podcast ever. So it kind of really took me off. It kind of threw me off a little bit, like, what is this whole thing? And I think most comedians have that. They have a stage voice that they suddenly kind of turn on when they get on there. It's very, very strange. So that can be sometimes a blessing and a curse, because if I'm a podcast fan, I look at it and I think that's not funny. And I'm definitely not going to see you perform again live, but I'm definitely going to support your pod. So you have 2 separate audiences. But in general, your comedy doesn't improve, because most of your material, most of your thinking time and your real creative juices are being funneled into your podcast. So I can't think of many stand-ups nowadays who have better comedy specials than their podcast. I can't think of many, legit. Even production-wise. Like, they go all out for their pod. It's a great studio. It sounds amazing. It's always uploaded well. Like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, people put a lot of effort into their pods, more so than doing their specials these days. It feels like, especially with YouTube. They just throw it up there as a piece of content to kind of get out there and get their name out there. But the irony of Death Squad featuring Brody Stevens, RIP to that guy. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there's many funny guys in that crew. It's really strange. A whole crew of stand-up comedians who, love to pontificate about the business of stand-up and go on and on and on about, doing triple runs and doing opening mics and writing bits and specials and comedy politics. But when it comes down to the business of actually making you laugh in real life, these guys are not funny, really. Especially, again, the JRE extended universe type of people. So it's making me think again. Shane Gillis is another one who's an exception, and also Mark Normand. Ari Shaffir I never really liked prior, but I think his recent special has definitely won me in terms of his ability to be trusted with my $20 to $100. These 3 might be, exceptions. Again, like I said, Dave Attell, people said THEO Vaughn, Bill Burr. There's a lot more associated that have been on this pod, has been on the JRE, who I would never go and see or trust. Even Joe Rogan himself, would I want to pay $100 to go and hear him rant about monkeys in his comedy special, or hump a stool or something, or make some comedic point about something he spoke about on a podcast prior? I'm not going to do that, because especially someone like him, he probably spends a lot, again, calculated hours. The amount of time that how long each JRE episode is, you'd imagine he probably records way more JRE episodes than he's ever done sets. Oh no, especially nowadays, considering how successful he is, he's probably not out there doing open mics all the time. So I don't know. I just find it very interesting that these guys just aren't the funniest. Really, really aren't the funniest. They like to act like they are and make it seem like it's all about the funnies, but really, them in IRL, they're not really out there, making regular punters absolutely crease and feel like they got their money's worth by coming to see them play. If anything, coming to see them perform is like, it's all like fan service. It's them doing fan. It's them. It's opportunity for you if you're a fan of them from their podcast to see them in person. That's why I understand why a lot of people buy meet and greets to see comedians, even though I would never do it. I understand how people do it, because if you're a fan of this person, you want to see them in person, you want to get a picture, shake their hand, let them know how much of the show, the pod meant to you and whatnot. It's a good way because you're not going to see them too often, especially if you don't live in the same country as them. I get it. I understand that regard. But I know I was just thinking about it recently, just thinking like, who would I really trust with money? My hard-earned squiller to go and see these people play. And I don't know. There's not a lot of them. What are people saying in chat about people? Who people rate here? I see people mentioning Godfrey, who's not associated with them. Someone saying, bro, I just drove by a Brad Williams billboard in OKC. He was here like 5 months ago and that shit was still up. Wow, okay, cool. See? Serendipity there, innit? Big up Trick Ho. I feel like Ari puts effort into his comedy life. Yeah. Ari puts in effort into the production of his comedy specials. But I think that's because, of course, he's a bit of a music head. He's into film. He's into festivals. He cares, and he comes to what's that thing he goes to? He goes to that thing in Scotland, Fringe Festival. That's obviously a big production. He's into showmanship type of stuff, so he actually does well in terms of production. I think he's actually an underrated producer. I'd actually love to see him produce someone special. Like, how other comedians help produce specials where they might pick out a venue, get a right director in, maybe even cut it or edit it themselves. I would actually like to see Ari Shaffir produce someone special. Maybe he could produce Brendan's. Imagine Ari Shaffir produced Brendan's next special and actually helped him with some of the jokes as well. That would be awesome. That'd be an awesome way to really turn it around. Imagine that. Remember when Rogan gave Red Band the opposite of a speech he gave Schaub? Yeah, true. I love to, yeah, Stavros I love to see also. I had tickets to see Tom Segura, but I was too hungover to go. Crazy. Uche knows, mate. The amount of events I've missed out on from being too hungover, you will never know, mate. Oh my god. I was a serial ticket buyer of events, and then you wake up the next day like, fuck it. I'll take the 40 quid hit. But yeah, Tracy Morgan, people are saying some good. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. It's just my general impression looking for it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. Who knows? Who cares? They're all doing way better than us anyway, so it doesn't really matter in that regard. And to be fair, I think a lot of them do use it as a bit of a cash grab anyway. That's a good way to kind of get some cold hard cash from your fans into your pockets and to keep it moving that way. But moving on, I'll just quickly check this out too. I thought this was pretty interesting. This is a clip taken from Theo Vaughn's podcast where he speaks to Bert Kreischer and asks him if he's an alcoholic. And the answer from Bert is really funny because it kind of reminds me why I don't like watching or listening to his podcast. That delusion and self-denial thing is just something that doesn't necessarily make him that appealing for me to watch in any way, shape or form. And also, I've never really been a fan of that whole adult frat boy persona thing. I think in general, I've always had an issue with people who have this imagined nostalgia. People who pretend like they were from some bygone era and try and kind of, attribute their life to this way of life or whatever it may be, or maybe act older than what they are and whatnot. It's just annoying. And even more so when somebody's trying to hold on to a part of their youth that they thought was really fun. It's just weird. It's like that. It's like guys who wear hockey jerseys all the time, or their hats backwards, or they're super aggressive with the teams they support. Because all those things are tied to like their youth and things that they actually loved about themselves at one time. I think growing old gracefully is actually pretty cool. Having your time to be a little bit of a delinquent, being dumb, being broke, having some money, having a family, or not being able to hold down a relationship, then suddenly you got a family, all these kind of things. That's actually quite nice to have that kind of those steps. Or sometimes just not figuring it out, but changing as a person, having the same interests all the time is pretty cool. And I feel like for whatever reason, Bert just doesn't have that. He's like Peter Pan. but like a weird Peter Pan, right? A kind of an alcoholic, anxiety-riddled Peter Pan. It's really, really strange. I've never really liked it. Honestly, it's been one of the main things that's kind of put me off his podcast. Even though I really like Bert Cast, and I think, oddly enough, even though Bert interrupts people a lot, he's actually one of the best interviewers. This is what I'm going to say. Controversial. Even though Bert interrupts people way often, and he has that horrible laugh, and I know he can be really annoying, he's actually probably one of the best interviewers, probably second to Ari Shafir. Ari Shafir is another really high level podcaster and interviewer who doesn't get the credit he deserves. But Bert is definitely up there, but his personality and this kind of delusion around his alcoholism is just too much to handle for me personally, just too much. But let's watch it anyway. This is a clip taken from the Theo Vaughn Clips channel. As you can see here, that's the title. It says Bert Kreischer and Theo Vaughn discuss alcoholism and drug addiction. And Bert's copiness is really sad, I feel like, especially considering this guy's in his 50s with a wife and kid and whatnot, and he's still holding on to his frat boy persona. I just think it's horrible. Let's continue. Let's play.
Do you think that you're an alcoholic?
No, I've run it through the ringer a few times. Dr. Drew's my litmus.
Oh yeah,
and I've talked to him about it. He's like, you're not an alcoholic. You just drink too much.
Oh yeah, the great Dr. Drew. He's definitely everyone's litmus test, right? Oh, for sure, Dr. Drew. That's like getting flipping cure advice from fucking Liver King, innit? Come on, brother.
He's like, alcoholism is different. Being powerless to alcohol is different than drinking a lot. I drank a lot yesterday, and I woke up in the middle of the night in a fucking sizzle. I mean, I was so hot, and all of a sudden my body went and fucking poured sweat.
Oh.
Back to sleep.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Like almost like when a truck stops and it's like.
It woke me up. I was so hot. I've never done the whole recovery thing. And
Yeah, do you ever think about it? Because you go, you go pretty hard, you know?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. Yeah. I mean, the problem I have is that what happens is when I feel like I'm going too hard, there's this internal kind of
brother. I gotta be honest as well. To be fair to him, I'm really thankful. As much as it was annoying to be forced to go to church after a certain amount of time, I'm actually happy that I was brought up in the church, because it kind of I kind of missed a lot of things. And because I've got pride and I've got an ego and I've got these weird little things about me that don't allow me to kind of retroactively try to be cool or to try and experience things I didn't experience before. I just can't do it. So for the majority of my life, I spent up until the age of 18, I spent it all in the church. So I didn't really get my first taste of an alcoholic beverage until maybe I was like 24, maybe. Really late in life, right? Maybe even later than that. I don't know. Was it 24? Maybe 24. But I didn't have a first actual drink until that time. So most of my time was spent just, enjoying the company of my friends, completely sober, eating loads of food, hanging out in church and catching the vibe. But even with that being said, I spent a large part of my youth also going to clubs and whatnot and enjoying that side of things. And legitimately, I can say, like, I'm really lucky that I've never really loved booze to the point where, like, it's like a beverage to me. Like, I have to have it when I'm eating, when I'm having my dinner or something. I can just have a glass of water or have nothing at all, or a cup of tea or some coffee. I don't need it to, like, drink, to eat, right? I don't need it to survive in that regard. And also, I'm not that big of a booze aficionado where I know the difference between high class whiskeys and mid class whiskeys and wines and stuff. So I'm very fortunate. That's what I have to say. I'm just very lucky. Maybe my genes, maybe my upbringing, maybe my temperament. That's luck. But also a side of me thinks part of alcoholism that's really fun is the sort of escapism, right? It kind of lets you tap out a little bit. You get a bit of a buzz. You get to kind of be a bit loose. You sort of, if you're somebody that's maybe a bit uptight, you get a bit loose, you become a little bit outgoing. It kind of makes conversations a bit fun, but it's pretty much a cool social thing to do with people. And I feel like sometimes, especially if you work a regular job, especially if you work in like the retail industry, you've worked in bars, you've worked in, restaurants and stuff, after a long, hard day's work, sometimes someone giving you like a cold brew is really nice, right? Just to kind of end the day like, or maybe going out for some drinks after work in the office with your office pals. It's just a nice way to kind of disconnect from all the trouble, like, oh, your manager's an asshole, whatnot. Cool. But it's sort of like a reward for putting up with the weekly hassles that you have, even daily hassles. Maybe your partner's annoying you at home, you have an annoying housemate, whatever. But that's mainly what it is. A part of me thinks this is extra illusory with someone like a Bert, because he's essentially living a 1% lifestyle, right? 1% lifestyle, 5% lifestyle, where he gets to go on stage and tell jokes. He takes his t-shirt off and gets an applause from the crowd. He goes on a podcast that he doesn't spend any time researching topics or anything. He just blurts out his dumb opinions and makes some jokes and stuff and gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe sometimes millions. Does tours and gets paid millions. Is producing his own movie that's probably going to be pretty good and successful. Like a really cushy life. I'm thinking to myself, if that's the facts and you're living a really cushy life, what would be the need to be like drunk all the time? Because like I said, my association with drinking was escapism from like hating my regular life, or a way to kind of tap out from the drudgery of my regular life, or just a way to just enjoy company with friends. But number one, you don't see friends all the time. You're not trying to tap out from life every single day. And, you know, you're in a bit of a funk, so it makes some sense. You don't earn that much money. Maybe the one thing that gives you a bit of, you know, pleasure in your life is having a bit of a drink. But surely if you've quote unquote made it, right, and you're a murderer, as the guys like to say, why are you abusing alcohol to this level? And that may be a quintessential alcoholic issue. That might be one of the bases of it, because I can't see anything, again, just judging from the outside in. I don't know this guy personally, don't know who he is, but I can't see anything from the outside in that could justify someone of Bert's level of success with it being okay to just wake up and drink a box of wine. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You're a multi-millionaire podcaster and stand-up comic. Like, your life is set. You make your own schedule. You put all your kids through school by telling embarrassing stories about them when they're growing up. You have a wife that's clearly okay with your lifestyle and, you know, is a great partner and is able to raise, like, everything seems to be pretty decent from what he speaks about. So I just can't understand what scenario would need me just be like drinking and pounding it back like that. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And also, just look at it from just a purely aesthetic point of view. Look at his face. If that's what alcohol does to you, if that's what being a beast of a comic does to you, I don't want any points of it. He's red and inflamed all over. Maybe that's a skin condition thing, maybe. But he's also very, very puffy. Like, he's got that Brendan Schaub stung by a million bees, you know, big up flipping THEO in that regard. It's not necessarily a good advert for boozing, is it, really? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I don't know. I think if you're set in life, surely there should be a point where you maybe rein it in a little bit, or maybe limit it to your actual wins. But I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's parts of his life that we're not really that aware of. Who knows? But let's just hear the rest of it.
Of metronome in me that goes, it's time to slow down. It's time to, let's do a couple nights off. Let's, you know, and not the way like a regular person would go.
Hold on. Dave H, is that true? He's saying here that Bert has said something about his dad maybe essaying him back in the day. Ooh, okay. Maybe that might explain it because, like I said, having been a long time listener of Bertcast back in it, like I said that in before, Unpopular Opinion, he's actually one of the better interviewers out there, even though he interrupts a lot, you know. But over a time, I just couldn't put up with how insufferable and delusional he was. It just got too much that I had to just tap out silently. But I was a fan of Bertcast before. I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. I really didn't know that that was what he shared about his dad. If that's the case, then that does explain a lot, because for me, I can't understand how somebody that clearly has probably the cushiest job in the world, I wouldn't say it's enviable, I don't say everyone wants to be a stand-up comic, but in terms of having a great lifestyle, he definitely has it. Why would he want to be drinking himself to, you know, to a stupor, to a point where he's blacking out at home and having the shakes and stuff and sweating in bed and popping Xanaxes? It's just like, come on, man, get a grip.
Like, we'll just drink on weekends, you know, and I'll be like, I won't drink Monday, Tuesday, you know.
So yeah, Uche made a good point. People that are okay don't drink like Bert does. That's a perfectly succinct way of saying that. To be honest, isn't it? People that are okay, exactly.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are like, this is gonna be the most horrific statement you'll ever hear me say on a podcast. Trust me. But like, or you'll go, let's not drink on private jets. You know, like that's like if you're buying a private jet to get yourself to work, maybe you should use that as that really expensive plane.
Now we understand why. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but the entire Your Mum's House community, or the majority of it, let's say, has kind of turned on, Tom Segura and Christina P, because they kind of, they've kind of lost their way. They're kind of starting to think their shit don't stink anymore, but they just got more rich and a bit disconnected from what they used to be. And maybe it's just a natural course of a comedian. You start off a bit edgy, and then once you start turning more money and whatnot, you become a bit more neutered, or you start to get annoyed at your fans because they're, weirdly enough, the more success you get, they kind of demand more from you. But that rich guy talk is funny because it's really turned a lot of people off, and he just slipped in there that he wanted to limit his time he's drinking to private jets. Honestly, man, imagine drinking a box wine on a private jet, or sneaking in little whiskeys into a private jet. Like, what? Like, surely, like, come on, man.
Plane ticket as a time to recovery and work hard and read a script and not just party your fucking dick off like I have the whole time I've ever gotten private jet. I get on a private jet and I'd be like, if I'm paying $13,000, $30,000, whatever I'm paying for a flight, I'm partying my fucking dick off.
Yeah.
We're eating edibles. We're
Yeah.
fucking
We're eating
Xanax.
ass,
It's like,
brother.
yeah, I'm gonna fucking get fucking wasted.
Oh, dude.
That indulging is just funny, you know. Look at Twitter space. I love how he just indulges. There's nothing else. He loves a treat, innit? That's the best thing. He loves a good treat. Loves a good reward for just existing.
And then I started going, no, I should probably not do that. I should probably use this as a time to work on my business, because it's a business expense technically. I drank perfectly in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Perfectly. I mean, so here's my thing with drinking. If I day drink, it fucks me up. I can't day drink really. So like I can only drink. I need to have. That's why the road works well for me, because I don't have my first drink till like midnight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'll drink midnight till 2, whenever bus call is. Maybe have a pop on the bus. Not lately because I have acid reflux.
I'm just checking because this is always buffering. I've got it too high up. Let me bring it down to 480. Yeah, okay, 720 and bring it down. It's buffering too much. Let's do 480.
So usually just have a couple drinks, after the show, 2 or 3 drinks, and then on the bus, go to sleep. Maybe hit a vape pen, let a joint, go to bed, and I'm out. Listen to a podcast, I'm out. And then wake up the next day a little late, but I don't drink the whole fucking day. So that's really good for me. Because day drinking, that's why I don't drink on jets or drink on planes.
This is the thing that used to annoy me when I was listening to BERTcast. This like rambling thing that he'd do to convince himself that he's not drinking too much. It just pissed me off because it's pure. It's like an anxiety, insecurity sort of thing, like a self-speak. Like, who you trying to convince? We don't care. Like, just move on. But he tried to convince himself that he's not to drink too much. He's actually quit drinking. He's only been drinking during the weekday. He only had 1 drink, today. That's a Monday. Like, I don't know, whatever. It was annoying. He's doing it a lot now.
Because if I day drink on a plane, then it goes out throughout the day, and then that really puts a dent on your wellness. Like, you just feel like shit. Your sweat smells like piss. You're shaky.
Your piss smells like sweat.
No, your sweat smells like piss too.
Both of them.
Yeah, both of them.
I mean, when you're in
my balls smelled. I drank all day yesterday. Yeah. Fucking started at like 7.
So you just did it.
Yeah, yesterday. But I busted my ass in the gym today, so it got it out of me.
Yeah.
But my balls smelled.
He's actually got a decent tan on as well, doesn't he? He's actually got a decent tan. Like, his arms look nice and olive. He's clearly been enjoying a good summer and getting out there in the ocean and bathing and whatnot and being in a good climate. But his face just like screams alky, innit? Crazy.
The worst anyone's balls have ever smelled in their entire life. When I got in the shower to come here, I took a little dab and sniff, and I was like, whew, that's worse than armpits.
Oh.
That's fucking, and that was booze.
Dude,
So,
how jealous do you think how jealous do you think the back of your balls are of the front of your balls, dude?
Well, the back of your balls hang out with your asshole. The front
Well, what's happening there? Okay, let's bring it down again. It's not having
of
it.
your balls hangs out with your dick.
Let's do.
I'd much rather hang out with a dick than an
Listen.
asshole.
Me too.
Let's have 360. This is not going. I thought he was going to ask him how jealous you think your fans are that you get to, you know, how jealous you think your other 50-year-old dad fans feel that you just get to act like a frat Chad boy, like, you know, in this old age while they're slaving away at their horrible jobs that they hate.
To imagine us being back there, it's like living in the slums.
It's like
you like to be alive.
I love being alive. It's like my favorite part of being alive is loving that you're alive.
Right.
Like if you just kind of go, I'm alive, you know. There's times where I wake up and I'm rough. This is when we're talking about like the recovery brain of like, man, what should I do? And then I think the difference is I wake up and if I feel a little down, a little depressed, maybe a little hungover, maybe a little shaky from partying too hard, I go, you have two options today. You can lose today. You can lose it. You're allowed to. You're allowed to take a Xanax, tap out, get back in bed, crank up the AC, throw on Netflix.
Controversial.
Put it on a Spanish-speaking cooking.
I saw you just saying something about Sober October. Controversial opinion here. I don't think Bert did Sober October this year or last year. I think he broke it ages ago. I just don't think he said nothing. I don't think so. Because I remember the year that Bert did actually do Sober October, which might have been the last time they did it. And he legitimately looked incredible after just a couple of weeks of not boozing. He lost mad amount of weight. His face went really, really slim. His skin wasn't as red and patchy and blotchy. I guess what I remember also is that you could tell he actually has a skin allergy. I forgot what it is. He actually has something of his skin. You could see it was actually a skin issue and less of a mix between him being bloated because of the booze and the skin issue. He looked incredible. Like he did lose a lot of weight, and that usually happens a lot if you're somebody that boozes a lot. You end up losing a lot of water weight pretty quickly. But the fact that he looked fairly the same when they did do the roundup pod made me know that he didn't really do Sober October. He lied for sure, 100%. The one last year, he 100% lied.
Show and just go to sleep for the whole day. You can do that, or you can choose to win the day where you get up, you have a coffee, you barrel through it, you go to the gym, you work out, and you just ignore that voice in your head that goes, hey man, we're not going to be able to do this today. You go, I'm not listening to you today. I chose to seize today. And knowing, for me, knowing that I have that tap out of like, hey, we can call it a day. We can wake up and call it a day, make a breakfast sandwich, eat a Xanax, watch Netflix, crank up the AC, blackout curtains, sleep, wake up at 8 and
Yo, my computer's struggling up now. Absolutely struggling.
have a cocktail with your wife and have a great fucking day. We can do that. Or we can push through the day. We can get up early. We can
I think we can stop playing this stream or stop playing this clip because my computer's absolutely crying. But yeah, you get the gist. Bert's in denial. Theo's loving it as a recovering addict, seeing somebody clearly denying that they're clearly having an issue there. It kind of is what it is, I guess, to a certain extent. It would be better if he would admit the position that he's in at the moment. But, you know, what can you do? What can you do? You know, unless people want to help themselves, you can't necessarily force them to want to help themselves. So I guess it's one of those situations that people just have to kind of wait and see what occurs. Oh, moving on from there, what do I want to talk about next here? Actually, what do I want to talk about here? Oh, that's it. Let's talk about this. So, have you guys seen this? Something that I'm really shocked about. So, this post did the rounds on the subreddit, which I thought was really funny. Let me get up on your screen. Bear with me a second. Yep, am I getting a warning here that I'm dropping frames, aren't I? Oh no, what was it saying here? Bear with me a second while I get this out of the way. Skipped frames a minute ago. Okay, cool. Am I back? Yeah, I think I'm back now. I think it should be fine. Cool. So, this post here from Brendan was getting a bit of love on the subreddit because of, you know, another unnecessary lie from the one and only Brendan Schaub, kind of similar to what I was talking to earlier about the Flakko thing. And again, kind of similar to what I spoke about earlier when I said that every guy in their guy group has a friend who just lies. And usually it isn't crazy big lies. It's just lying about the most innocuous, non-important thing ever. And one of the things that Brendan seems to be doing that he does a lot as well is that he lies about stuff. And I think in general, it's like, for me, I don't think he lies about big things. I think he just lies about little details. So there's a story that he's doing recently now about, or I saw a clip somebody sharing about him saying the Ferrari guy is a big fan of his comedy. I think it was a clip taken from a pod he did, where he said that the Ferrari guy loves his comedy and put him on a list to get a Ferrari, and that's how he got up there or something. I think that's what he said. So I think something on those kind of lines. Now, I don't necessarily think the Ferrari guy did it. I think it was, you know, somebody regional. He says the head of Ferrari of North America. Maybe somebody that worked for like a regional dealership may have been a fan, but he kind of spins it and says, you know, the main CEO of flipping Ferrari Global Motorsports or something is, you know, watching fucking the Fire and the Kid, which is absolutely insane. But I think maybe, yeah, would the regional manager that owns a dealership somewhere, cool, probably be a fan of his and Joe Rogan? I'd imagine so. So that's the case. So similar to with this sort of tweet that he put out recently, where he's featured here with what's these guys' names? Is that Greg Garland, right? I'm thinking in the middle. Right? It's Greg Garland, right? That's the guy from what's his face? From the Larry David thing, Kirby Enthusiasm and something else. And then the other dude is who? What's his name? Russell Peters, that's it. Sorry, look at me, I forgot. So anyway, the tweet says as follows. I was lucky enough to do a few sets with these legends of stand-up last night. There's over 70 years of experience in this picture, and I only add 8 years to that number. I'll be starting the 2023 leg of my what's happened there? Of my stand-up tour in Vegas, Jan 5th to Jan 7th. So the thing to kind of pick out here is this. I only add 8 years to that number. Because what he's insinuating is that he's been doing stand-up for 8 years, which he clearly hasn't. I think at best, you could say he's probably been doing it for 7 or 6. Which again isn't a big swing, but he's still him not wanting to say 7, not wanting to say 6, wanting to say 8. It's such a nonsense lie because it doesn't necessarily even matter when you started it, because people still don't think you're funny. So it's not as if, like, if you say you've been in it longer, it kind of excuses the fact that maybe your comedy specials aren't that great. If anything, it makes it worse that you're 8 years in and you have 2 specials that have been widely panned, right? That's not the best thing to basically be highlighting, in my opinion. But again, what do I know when it comes to these sort of things? I just think it's very, very strange that he'd go out of his way to say something like this, personally, for me. I don't understand why. And it's a common thing for Brendan in general. And the thing that's really funny about it is that it's easily disproven, because all you have to do is go to articles like this, which I currently just, I just randomly Googled this article, and this is taken from Fox Sports, a fairly well put together article. It's got a really cool picture. It just looks nice, right? It's clearly done, as a way to kind of promote and make him look good. It's written in November 2016, as you can see there, and the title is Stand Up. Brendan Schaub details his first night as a solo comedian, right? And it says, Brendan Schaub knew he put his preparation to practice to be ready for this moment, but the nerves are still washed over him like a cold bucket of water. He paced back and forth, a million thoughts running through his head. The crowd stood just feet away and the bright lights were gleaming. Schaub heard his name announced and there was no going back. That scenario probably sounds familiar if you're talking to Schaub during his career as a UFC fighter, but this time he wasn't stomping towards the octagon and Bruce Buffer wasn't the person calling his name. Schaub was stepping on stage by himself to do a stand-up comedy routine for the first time ever in front of a frothing crowd at the world famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles. He says here, I was nervous as fuck. It was like a fight, the hurry and wait thing. Like, the worst part of the UFC fighters is the fight day, because you're just sitting in your hotel all day just waiting to fight. Well, for comedy, I do my set. I've been practicing. I was doing it 3 or 4 times a day for a week just to get ready for this thing, and I didn't go on until 11:30 at night. That's the way the show business and fight business works, even before show. So he's clearly pointing out, or making it seem as if he's been in this game longer, when this article that was written in 2016, around the time that he did start doing stand-up properly by himself, That's when it first started, around Mayish, if I'm not mistaken. No, not Mayish. Mayish can't be the time. Is it May? Yeah, it was about May. I think it might have been about May, if I'm not mistaken. Again, this is from a former fan, so I would know these things. And I just feel to myself like, what would be the need? What would be the need to lie about something like that? Like, why would you lie? Because it's not as if like he's that far off. Again, it's probably 7. Probably 7. Probably 7. Probably 6. But it's definitely not 8. Maybe because 8 is closest to 10 and he wants that big round number. So he'll probably be cheating his 10-year mark. When he does celebrate it, he'll probably be like, yeah, I'm 10 years in. When he's not, he's maybe 9 or 8 years in. But it's just a weird lie. But again, I'm not surprised because I've had friends I've grown up with who would lie about the most nonsense thing just to appear cooler to the group, which doesn't necessarily make you look cooler. If anything, you look like more like a redact, if anything. But people tend to do this too often. But there he is there, standing with Russell Peters and stuff. And I don't know. As well, just this whole like legends thing and having you stand next to these type of people too, I wouldn't want it, knowing what's happened with these recent specials. If anything, I'd be just hunkering down and trying to get my comedy sets to be funny and get people to want to, you know, get people to kind of change their opinion of what my stand-up is like. Maybe not me as a person, but that's what I'd definitely be doing if I was him. But, you know, maybe I'm different in that regard because I'm him, I'm me, and he's him, but who knows? But yeah, I thought that whole thing was absolutely really unnecessary and weird. But again, goes to speak to the guy just wanting to lie all the time. All the time, all the time. Who knows? Who bloody knows? Moving on here. What was I to talk about? Oh, was that it or was that more? I think there was more. It must have been more. What was it? Let's see. Come on. Yes, dude. Cool. So this. Oh god, I got to blow my nose again. My allergies are so crappy. I've had a crappy time with the allergies this past few days. Really bad time. Anyway, let's continue. So, I wanted to talk about this kinda, and maybe end on this because my computer's acting weird right now. What on? Anyway, cool. Let's go. So I wanted to talk about this quickly, right? The Crystalia stuff. This is kind of what? It's like kind of a week on. Yeah, it's been a week on since. Yeah, it's been more than a week. It's been 2 weeks since the infamous Crystalia documentary dropped, and this is kind of a bit of a, you know, review of what's basically happened since then. Nothing really, innit? That's the really unfortunate part of this whole situation, I feel like. Watching it from the outside in, also being somebody who kind of came into the accusations thinking that it was mostly just Chris just being too horny, because I think my original impression of the allegations against Chris was that most of the reason why he was getting cancelled and why these girls are coming after him was because he was just a douche. Like, he didn't go out of his way to make the experience or the hookup, however crass it was, enjoyable. Because I remember reading one account of when he met some girl and he just, you know, didn't really talk to her and kind of just took her upstairs and tried to get it on with her straight away. There was no pre-game, there was no foreplay, there was nothing. He just went straight from outside, took her upstairs like a lady of the night and tried to do his business. So of course the girl wasn't too infused by it and maybe denied his advances. But I thought, okay, cool, he's clearly somebody that's aggressively horny and maybe somebody that doesn't necessarily, you know, view women that he has any sort of sexual relationship with as any kind of value. It's sort of transactional. But then when you watch the documentary, you realize it's far more sinister, far more dark, far more even bordering on a level of evil than you would have, you know, expected if you just read the original allegations. And you think to yourself, rah, Ted, boy, this is mad. But then, when you really think about it, and you think about it in the context of cancel culture in general, you think about it, what's happened prior with all these other essay allegations with people, and you think about what's going on nowadays now, especially when you think of content creators and podcasters and people that have patrons and whatnot that get involved in these scandals. The truth of the matter is, cancel culture doesn't necessarily work with people like this. It just doesn't. Because what you want with cancel culture, you want someone to feel shame, embarrassed for what they did, right? But if you're a bit of a scumbag and you have fans who are okay with you being a scumbag, it's very difficult to feel embarrassed or shameful for what you did because your fans don't care. And if your fans don't care, they're the ones that pay your bills, they're the ones that you're creating the content for. It's very difficult if you're a victim of the things that Chris has been accused of to feel as if you're going to get any level of justice societally. Because I thought, for me, for the longest time, I felt like cancel culture wasn't necessarily an attempt for women, or even Me Too, wasn't necessarily, it didn't feel like an attempt for women to try and get these guys locked up, because we all know anything involving sexual abuse is really hard to convict in court for some reason, especially the R word. It's just always difficult to actually get people convicted for it. So for the most part, a lot of this stuff that happens to women out there just doesn't get reported. It kind of falls by the wayside, and you're left with, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of victims out there who have never spoken about what has happened to them because they know it's not going to go anywhere. So you look at Me Too and you know, and cancel culture sort of movement and whatnot, and even though it got a bit out of hand towards the end, the original, I thought, kind of reason for it was to kind of hold people accountable and say, hey, you did this thing to me, like say it aloud, like you did this to me, I remember it, I know it happened, and kind of put it out there in public so that it doesn't happen again, and kind of make people embarrassed. Because what cancel culture and Me Too did is that it exposed everybody involved. Because I think that's the main thing I got from the Harvey Weinstein documentaries and exposés about it. The Harvey Weinstein thing, obviously Harvey Weinstein was a monster, but what you also got from it was the amount of enablers, and unfortunately so, the amount of women around him that who enabled and facilitated some of his, you know, disgusting and horrible acts that he obviously is rightfully been charged with, and probably going to spend a lot of time in prison off the back of. All those things happen, and that's what happens, right? But you don't necessarily see a lot of these guys ending up in jail, unfortunately. So even though the documentary was well done, even though it painted a picture of Chris that isn't favorable, and I think for the general decent everyday person out there, it's hard to root for the guy. It's basically impossible to root for him. In the grand scheme of things, will it really change the course of his career now? Not really, because he was never going to get welcome back into Hollywood. Hollywood journey is done. He's never going to get a Netflix special again. I don't think so. But he's probably going to have a decent career with his podcast, right? He's still able to pull decent numbers with his fucking brother who no one knows, right? He's got a podcast with his brother that he's doing that's already, you know, near 40k. Again, it's only 40k views, not a lot, but still, you know, it accumulates after a while. I don't know. I just don't think it's like there's a resolution that's favorable for anybody involved. Personally, it doesn't do anything for anybody. For the victims, they have to relive the trauma of the events. You know, I don't know. And the other thing that's also interesting about it, while I was viewing from afar, was the complete silence from guys in the comedy community about it. I thought that was really interesting. And more so with guys in the comedy community who have daughters who are around the same age as the girls that Chris is alleged to be into, just having absolutely nothing to say. Now, is this professional courtesy because he's involved in your industry and you don't want to put him out there that way? I don't really know. But I find the fact that none of these big time comics have come out and said anything about it. I know there's been a few. I think there's been a couple. Maybe Nikki Glazer said some stuff. Legion of Skanks have kind of made some comments. But no one from his kind of circle of friends have really said anything about it. They've all kind of kept their mouths stum, which is pretty crazy, in my opinion. Oh, I did that wrong. Yeah, it's pretty nuts, in my opinion. I don't know. I just don't understand. And this guy has been able to get away with this, but a lot of it, I think, comes to my original summation before that I said was this: similar to what happened with KHALYLA and stuff with the Bobby Lee things with Brendan Schaub. There wasn't enough conversation or a lot of kickback or pushback on Brendan when it comes to what I thought was the most egregious crime, which was trying to smash, you know, your comedic friend's girlfriend at the time behind his back. I thought that was worse than him accusing Bobby Lee of being the culprit behind the flipping homeless cats on subreddit, right? Being a subreddit flipping guy. I thought that was worse, right? Him trying to actually fuck KHALYLA. But no one seemed to bat an eyelid at that. And I remember my kind of, when I figured out, I was like, you know what? Maybe no one's really talking about that because everybody does that themselves. They've either tried to fuck KHALYLA themselves or they've done it to other comics. Like they've smashed their partners, their wives, their dates, whatever, behind their back. Like it's something that everyone does in the scene. So they can't exactly come out and condemn him because they also do that or far worse. So maybe it's a case with this Crystalia thing, which is scary to think. This is scary. Think about this. Maybe there are others in the comedy community who have done similar things to Crystalia, so they don't feel like they have a right to come out and chastise them about it also, which is really sick and really crazy. But again, man, that LA delusion, that LA scene is just wild, the things you can get away with as a grown-up. You can get away with some, and these people aren't even that well-known household names. Maybe Crystalia is because he was really famous and he was in a hit TV show, but for the most part, you'd imagine most comedians aren't that well-known outside of the ones that get on JRE. They're just like regular dudes and regular gals, and they're able to get away with this level of debauchery and this level of abuse. Just imagine what the big people are getting up to. Just imagine. A little bit of clout, a little bit of celebrity, you're getting people in your DMs hitting you up, or you're reaching out to people, you're searching your names, the conversations are flowing a little bit easier, you're able to kind of get through on second, third base. Like, I don't know, it's scary. But again, it's disappointing because I feel like, I don't know what people were expecting from it. Maybe they were expecting Chris to be let out in cuffs somewhere. That was never going to happen. He kind of kept on keeping on when the pod dropped. He went out. I think he kept doing the pod. He did one with his wife, I think, straight after. The finding the kid didn't really make a comment on it, and people just kept on keeping him. The one who got caught astray, though, was Eric Griffin. I saw Eric Griffin randomly caught astray. I forgot where I saw it, but I saw someone posting, I think a comment, maybe it was Alice Hamilton, or somebody posted somebody's comment where they said something like, oh yeah, Eric Griffin was also hitting me up when I was this age, knowing full well what age I was, which might also explain why he was kind of cucking and, white knighting for Chris, when that whole thing was going down and whatnot, and, stumbling over his words and trying to explain things and whatnot. That probably explains a lot of it, but I can't really think of anything else that's happened that's been any sort of impact in his career when it comes to Chris overall. He's kind of probably ride this out and he's going to be completely fine, unfortunately. So when it comes to those documentaries, I think people just do this because, you want to share your story, you want to get it out there. And I think the good thing about those docs is that what you hope would happen is that you warn other people. It's just like that's what you do. It's a warning. You put it out there in public, because I've said it before prior, but I think a large part of the reason why Chris ran away, right? What's that? Dave Page, Chris has more experience with blackmail than you can. This chat, you guys are going to hell. I said from time ago, one of the reasons why I think Chris went dark for so long and disappeared and didn't want to talk or anything, I felt like was the sort of like the embarrassment and the shame of being exposed, of being a sex pest and being horny, because that was never his image. Don't get me wrong, he had the whole like first chat thing with his top off, but I always thought it was more comedic than it was like, hey, I'm sexy. Obviously, he had a big female audience and a big fan base. I remember seeing at a Laugh Factory thinking, wow, I didn't know that many girls came out to comedy shows, and then lo and behold, Crystalia comes out on stage and he gets the biggest applause. You're like, oh, they're here for him. But I never got the impression that he was being overly sexual with his videos online. He was just I felt like trying to be funny and doing what most white guys do when they're trying to be funny, is that they either put on women's clothing, they take off their own clothes, or they make weird voices. And, he did, 2 out of the 3. But obviously when those allegations came out and people got to see his deepest, darkest kinks, it was a bit of a shock because it went against everything that we know of him to be. So that's why he probably disappeared for so long. But when he came back and saw that the only thing he lost was a couple of Hollywood deals and a Netflix special and maybe, commercial endorsements, he was like, it's not too bad. I got a pop-in Patreon. I'd get some decent AdSense money from my YouTube. I do get booked in shows. I sell out. I remember seeing the other day on my stream, we looked up amount of tickets this guy actually sells, and it's a lot. It's unfortunate, man, but I think the only reason why you come out and speak out as issues because you want to raise awareness and make sure other girls don't end up in the same position that you did. But I don't think you can ever expect him to be, you know, be in prison anywhere, shape or form, anywhere, anytime soon. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. So it is what it is. And to be honest, from what I've seen so far, again, unless this is my thinking, unless his team of people, unless he's got a BJ on his team who's actively going through and deleting comments, there's been so many supportive comments on his stuff on YouTube. It seems like his fans really don't care. Like, for the most part, they don't care at all, in the slightest. So that's interesting to see. Not gonna lie, that's been really, really interesting to see. His fans don't give an absolute scoby. Moving on. What else am I going to talk about here? Yeah, talk about this quickly. Have you guys seen this? This is a clip taken from this channel called Comedy Enforcement. They did some pretty good videos, so I definitely recommend you check them out. And they put this clip together regarding Rogan talking about KHALYLA and Bobby Lee's breakup on his pod. I thought this was pretty interesting. Let's quickly play this clip because I thought this guy made some interesting points, but also some points I really strongly disagree with. This whole KHALYLA thing as well. And whenever I talk about KHALYLA, and I'm not on the bandwagon of saying that she's some, you know, benevolent flipping mastermind gold digger thing, people get angry, but because I put some responsibility on Bobby Lee also for getting cucked out. But I don't know, it's weird, man, the things people have around it. But anyway, let's watch it anyway. Let's just check it out and see what this guy has to say.
So I haven't been keeping up with the latest Joe Rogan podcast episodes, but thanks to Sigmund, they commented the exact timestamp where Joe Rogan and Brian Redban start talking about Bobby Lee, KHALYLA, the whole breakup, and mention how Bobby Lee is doing way better, is way happier now that he is alone. The whole thing is pretty wild, and I'm sure KHALYLA is going to be
on ever.
Really?
Yeah.
He was.
Has he been on in the past?
Yeah, he was on
way back in the day.
Episode 4 or 5 or something.
Okay, that's right. He hasn't been on since, but I would 100% have him on.
Yeah, he was in town the other day to do that Your Mom's House, and he came to the Secret Show and he did a spot and hung out with him. I haven't hung out with him in so long. He seems so happy now, so it's really cool to see a happy Bobby.
First thing I wanted to point out was Brian and Joe Rogan talking about Bobby Lee being on the podcast, because I've said it before that Bobby Lee has never been on the Joe Rogan Experience, and a lot of people disagree with me. And I get it, because technically, yes, Bobby Lee was one time, way back in the day.
Okay, let's comment on one thing. He said about what did he say? What did the guy say, Red Brand? Oh, he's happy. I don't know what I would take from comedians talking about their other comics being happy now that they're divorced or broke up from their partners. They do it all the time. Whenever someone breaks up with somebody, cool, whatever. But they do that about everybody. I think that, controversial opinion, I feel like most comedians, outside of with small percentage of them, don't actually like their partners. They're just sort of people that they probably hooked up with prior to them being successful. Because imagine it, most of these guys are like middle-aged men, right? And they only become successful in their late 40s, early 50s. They then suddenly start to get attention of women that would never look at them if they weren't successful comics or didn't have clout or influence or popularity and whatnot. So it's natural or normal or understandable if some of them maybe look at somebody that they grew up with or having relationships since they were 21 and they were eating cheeseburgers together and think, you know what, maybe I should go and, you know, be with this IG model somewhere or this other influencer that does TikToks and whatnot who's 21 than someone like you. And I think when they see somebody in their little crew who's able to divorce or break up with somebody that's long term, they kind of vicariously live through them and like, oh my God, it's so amazing. You can do all the things that you wanted to do now. Yay, and champion it. I've not seen one comic talk negatively, or not negative, or basically maybe say, hey, maybe you should stay with the person you're with. They all kind of congratulate. When Brian Callen broke up with his, or got divorced from his mother of his children, they were all talking like, now that he's divorced his mother of his children, his career is going to go to the next level and he's going to become a big comic. It's all cap. It's all cap. I think for the most part, again, this is just my uneducated, uninformed opinion, most comics don't actually like their partners, and when one of them does end up breaking up with them, they vicariously live through it, and they kind of they hope it was them, but it doesn't necessarily speak to the strength of the relationship in any way, shape or form. I don't think so.
On the Joe Rogan Experience, I think it was episode 4 or 5, which they addressed in a little bit. But if you think about it, that was so long ago and probably so insignificant that even Joe Rogan himself.
Anyway, skip that.
Man, I think that's on you.
Yeah.
I don't know how you cannot love that guy. He's f***ing hilarious. His stand-up is f***ing hilarious. I've been busting his balls for years trying to get him to do a special. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you go see...
Yes, there we go. I'm hoping Josie Masters is a lady from what I can see in the avatar, but that's exactly what I was pointing at, and you put it way better than I did. Josie Masters says the following: I think all the comics knock up their partners for some reason. They think they have to marry them like it's the 50s. Exactly, that's how I see most comics. I see them like characters from Mad Men, where the partners or their wives are kind of like just housewives. They kind of just they're there to pop out babies and look after the household when they're not there, and obviously raise the kids. But I don't really see like a part. Again, think of it. Think of it yourself. What comedian do you really hear speaking lovingly, about their partner, like to a real extent? Before they broke up, Bobby Lee and KHALYLA were clearly talking quite well about each other. Bill Burr talks really well about his wife, and clearly you could tell there's a lot of love and appreciation there. But a lot of them, it's all kind of tolerance and kind of, whatever. It's not, I don't know. I never get love. I kind of just get like, you put up with it, right? Got kids with her, gotta put up with it. She's the mother of my children, gotta put up with it. She's looking after the house, gotta put up with it. Like, I don't get love. I don't get affection. I don't get warmth. I don't get, that's my ride or die. You know what I mean? That's love of my life. I don't get that vibe from them whatsoever. So when they talk about, who was right for who and stuff, I can take it a pinch of salt, because I feel like all of them want to be bachelors. Most of these guys, these over 40 comedians, want to be out there single slanging dick, but they can't because they don't also want to be single parents looking after their kids. You know what I mean?
Excuse me. If you go see him live, you will not be disappointed. He's very funny. He's the funniest guy that doesn't have a special, for sure. Like, no one's even close. He a murderer. He would go to the Comedy Store in the fucking OR and just destroy. Bobby destroys. Mm-hmm. And he performs. He's so good. He's so enthusiastic. Hopefully he'll put together a special. But if he doesn't, go see him live. It's fucking great. Yep. And he's just a good dude. I'm happy to see him happy.
Like I mentioned, I don't think she's going to be happy when she hears what Joe Rogan has to say.
Oh, happy to see him happy. Ryan Rogan doesn't like KHALYLA, man.
Yeah, me too.
And I bet his DMs are filled with bomb diggers.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of girls want to take up where KHALYLA left off. Let me show you some next level.
Yeah.
But now they also realize they can get famous if they're Bobby Lee's girlfriend.
Oh,
there's probably a lot of those girls.
It's so dangerous nowadays.
So it's got to duck them.
These guys, they think so highly of themselves. And maybe again, I'm thinking about it from just a really charitable point of view. Is there anything wrong with getting a bit of clout and getting a bit of fame off the fact that your husband is a flipping worldwide comic, especially if you want that fame? I know Joe Rogan's kind of, lucky in that respect, because it feels like his wife doesn't want anything to do with social media, anything to do with celebrity. She kind of just keeps herself to herself and enjoys the money and enjoys the family. So props to her. But I feel like if you are doing your own thing and you also got somebody that's doing their thing, like if I was a successful stand-up, why wouldn't I want to, share the clout, share the spotlight? Hey, come on my stream, sit here next to me, take this cool picture. I don't know, get them involved and get their followers up. I don't know, help them out a little bit. What's wrong with that? They're acting as if like it's not mutually beneficial, and for a long time it was. Bobby Lee actually became, again, as a fan of Bobby Lee and Tiger Belly, do you guys remember there was a point where Tiger Belly fans were getting turned off with Bobby Lee being a bit of an infant? And because essentially Bobby Lee's 50 years old, 60, and he acts like he's 19, right? He's like, I don't know if it's like an actor or whatnot, but there was a point in time when people actually credited KHALYLA with being somebody that made Bobby Lee grow up a little bit and brought out a different side of him. So it was mutually beneficial. I don't think, of course, Bobby Lee's talent is the main thing of why people were tuning in, and he's incredibly funny and charismatic and whatever it may be. But come on, man, like, let's share the limelight a little bit here. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, let's share the limelight.
You got to know which one's a sociopath, which one's pretending they like you, and which one just really likes funny guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rude. Hold on. Which one just likes funny guys? Couldn't it be said all the girls that Crystalia was alleged to have abused were only into him because he was Crystalia? Like the initial attraction, because he was this mildly attractive comedian guy that they saw on TV. So it kind of works both ways. He only has access to those girls because of what he does, and they only like him because of what he does. It's kind of a mutually beneficial agreement, I would imagine, no? Like, do these guys really think they'd be bagging the women that they're bagging now at the moment if they're just regular dudes working an IT job somewhere? Like, really? Like, I know Joe Rogan wasn't ugly when he was younger, but Joe Rogan now? 5'2" Joe Rogan making $60,000 a year? Will he really be able to pull like, like what? I don't get it, bro. I don't get it. But again, if you buy into the KHALYLA is evil narrative, then maybe this is kind of your lightning rod and your example to kind of show, hey, I told you. But wild.
You know who's hilarious? Stavos.
A few things to unpack here. The reason why I keep saying that KHALYLA is going to be mad whenever she hears that is because if you remember that Tiger Belly episode with Brendan Schaub, she showed that she really, really cared about what Joe Rogan thought of her. It was very clear that she only cared what Joe Rogan had to think about her and not what everybody else.
Yo, what was this guy watching? Maybe we have different perceptions of interactions, but I never got the impression that KHALYLA was more worried about what Joe thought of her. She just wanted to find out what was being said, because if I'm not mistaken, in the argument, they were using Joe Rogan as a threat. Like, oh, I'm going to tell Joe, kind of insinuating if you tell Joe, that's going to be you kind of excommunicated from the comedy scene. So she was trying to figure out if the rumors were getting back to him at that level. That's what the comment. It wasn't that she was like worried, oh no, Joe might not like me. Like, huh? Why is this like, that is a weird take to have from it. Like why would it, I don't get it. And it sounded like she found out that Brendan said something to Joe anyway, so it leads you to believe that maybe she was in communication with him anyway, right? Maybe. I felt like how she was speaking, it felt like she knew Joe Rogan personally, or she knew somebody who's spoken to Joe and he told them the truth and whatnot. But I don't know, this guy's impression of it is very strange.
Thought, including her fans, clearly. So Joe Rogan saying that Bobby Lee now seems happy, now seems free. It's essentially what everybody else has been saying all along, that now that he has broken up with KHALYLA, there's a clear night and day difference, not only in his performance, but his lifestyle. So clearly there's
What? Is this true? Are people saying that because Bobby Lee's broken up with KHALYLA that he's a better comic? What? They just weren't compatible, innit? They were just toxic and it didn't work out towards the end. KHALYLA wanted to fuck other guys. Bobby Lee wasn't happy that she wanted to fuck other guys, and they broke up. I don't see this any big deal. Even she is a massive whore. I don't understand the issue here. Like, it's just they didn't agree with whatever lifestyle choices they wanted to, get up to in the bedroom, and it just ended. That's what I thought the issue was. Or maybe Bobby Lee was never gonna propose or put a baby in her anytime soon. Maybe that's what she wanted. You break up. What's the big deal here? LOL. And it's funny. This time next year, Bobby won't have put out a special. So this whole improvement and he's like a new person. Okay, put out a special then. What happened? This is bullshit.
Possibility that Joe Rogan believes that maybe KHALYLA was holding Bobby Lee back, and if he doesn't believe that, what he does believe is that KHALYLA can be easily replaced by someone way better for Bobby Lee. And this is where KHALYLA was gadooshed, because Joe Rogan saying that Bobby Lee could easily find somebody better.
Hey, yo, man. Hey, yo, bro, I like your channel and stuff, but again, I'm no one to talk because I have my little ticks and stuff that I say. But you got to leave all that chauvinism to the flipping Reddits and stuff. You can't be saying stuff like this out loud in your bedroom. Like, that's a mad thing, man. You sound... you sound... Oh, this is play. This is play. I can't say no more. I don't want to be mean. Let's say play.
Better that could just pick up where KHALYLA left and take it to the next level is insane. It's a wild thing to say. And the reason why it's so wild is because it's true. We've been saying this for a while, but a lot of people give a lot of credit to KHALYLA for helping Bobby Lee build Tiger Belly, essentially. Okay, but now imagine if Bobby Lee actually had a partner that was talented and could actually make people laugh.
What? So you give KHALYLA the credit for helping him make Tiger Belly, but then you say that he's now a better comic and a person because he's not with KHALYLA, but then you want him to get with somebody who's going to do what KHALYLA did. How does that make any sense? So they want another KHALYLA that's not KHALYLA to be with Bobby then. That's what they want. Yo, these Bobby Lee fanboys are weird, man. Like, if KHALYLA is the evil whore person that they all paint her out to be, gold digger person, then wouldn't you just want Bobby to be with just like a regular everyday girl that isn't involved in the industry? Maybe that's what he needs instead of somebody that actually wants to be a content creator on their own volition. Because would they run into the same issues that KHALYLA and Bobby Lee had in some place? Well, no, or what?
Think about it. Tiger Belly would be in a complete different ball game at this point.
Would love that. Would love nothing more. When you did tell Rogan your version of events, I just want to know for my own peace of mind, did he believe it?
I don't know. To him, it's like, you're never going to beat the internet, man. I mean...
No, regarding me and Bobby.
No, because I told him it's not you guys.
Okay, but everything else regarding... The information that got back to me is that you told Rogan things, obviously, that were very slanderous about me.
I love how he didn't come back here and said, no, I never. He just sat there. You told Rogan very slanderous things about me. Fight back. Come on, bro. Fight back.
Believe that wasn't the case.
Joe Rogan also mentioned how Bobby Lee's DMs must be full with beautiful women or whatever. And the fact that he has to watch out for the new girls that want to come in because they know that they can get famous for being Bobby Lee's girlfriend. And I might be reaching on this one, but I think that's a diss to KHALYLA. Maybe not intentionally, but unintentionally it is. Instead of saying something like, hey, if you're Bobby Lee's girlfriend, you can build a business, become financially successful, yada, yada. No, he just said...
Boo. I'm done, man. I'm done. This guy's a fucking dork. Like, I can't... I really want some of these guys who are legitimately like anti-KHALYLA and think Bobby Lee was being held back by flipping KHALYLA in his career. I really want these guys to define to me why they think KHALYLA was such a big deal, because I can't figure it out. Let's say you take all her worst attributes that these guys point out. She's a gold digger. She's a whore. What else? She's not funny. What else I think about? She's a liar. I don't know. What else? I can't think of anything more. But think about whatever thing that you want to accuse her of being. Is that still enough to warrant this level of slander? Like, I really do wonder. Like, is it enough to warrant a level of slander? And also, doesn't Bobby Lee hold some level of accountability for allowing it all to happen for so long? If that is the case, if she was, secretly always planned to get in his pants so that she could steal his money, like, why did he allow it to continue for so long? Until it got to a point where they couldn't, continue on for going forward. For me, from an outsider's perspective, I just saw it as two people who clearly weren't on the same page in terms of what they were getting up to in the bedroom, and then decided to call it quits. All the other stuff is kind of whatever. It doesn't really mean anything. But this idea that Bobby Lee is like a damsel in distress is fucking weird, bruh. The guy is like 55 years old. No? He's been in the industry he's been famous for a long time. Like, Bobby Lee's been playing above his batting range for ages. It's not like this is the first woman he's got in a relationship with who's hot and outside of his league. He's been doing that forever. Look at him. Do you know what I mean? No offense to the guy, but look at him. He's always been hitting above his flipping range. So I don't think it's like, oh, she was so beautiful that it blinded him. Nah, it just, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you end up with somebody, it works out for a while, then it doesn't work out. It's not a bad thing. No one's sitting here saying, especially not me, I'm not sitting here saying flipping KHALYLA was the flipping reason why Tiger Belly was successful. She definitely played a part. We can't deny that in terms of, you know, helping him maybe to get it started and having some structure. I don't know what she did behind the scene. I don't really care because I don't really watch Tiger Belly like that. But the way they paint KHALYLA to be this like mastermind is so weird. I've heard the woman talk. She doesn't seem, again, no offense to the lady, she doesn't seem the brightest either. So how does this person that doesn't seem like she's that bright is able to kind of come in and swindle this guy out of what? Clout. Okay, cool. You're his girlfriend. You're in a podcast. That's the least you should be being paid back in. Especially being in a relationship with Bobby Lee. Like, I think some of these guys don't really know. Like, imagine living day to day with Bobby Lee. I love the guy, but come on, man. Like, I don't know. I just find it strange personally. I don't know what she's really done to really get these guys up, you know, to really root against her. Maybe again I'm missing something, because I think I said before there's a sub that I was subscribed to. I don't know the name of it, but it was a sub that was kind of anti KHALYLA. I was trying to figure out why do people not like her to a level that they're making it seem like now Bobby's got rid of her, that he's got rid of this big weight. And I still couldn't work it out. It just seemed like people just didn't like her because she was a bit of a whore. Which is that a crime, to be like sexually active and wanting to have your guy watch you get fucked by other dudes? It's weird. Maybe it's a little bit too XX for some people. XXX, sorry. But is that really a crime to be, you know, adventurous in the bedroom and whatnot? You want to be that, you can. Sometimes if you don't want to, fair enough. But I don't know. And also, like I said, Bobby Lee's 50 years old, brother. Like, I'm not giving him a pass. I'm sorry. 50 years old man. He should be able to know how to kind of, you know, deal with those things in that way as well. But anyway, you know, hey, what do I know, innit? What do I know? What do I know when it comes to sort of thing? But I think in general, just to kind of end that thing, what it does do though, it does explain again why no one really made any comment about Brendan trying to fuck KHALYLA behind Bobby Lee's back. Why that wasn't a big problem, because I still to this day can't understand it. But having heard what Rogan said, it does feel like for some reason, maybe it's warranted, maybe it isn't, there was a reputation and there was things being said about KHALYLA in the scene that would lead you to believe that people generally didn't rate her as a person, and they probably thought she was a bit loose and, you know, whatever it may be. I think that's the general impression I'm getting from what I've been seeing online and whatnot. So it does make sense why they weren't too, you know, willing to come out and say Brendan did anything wrong, because maybe she has fucked other comics behind Bobby Lee's back. Maybe that's the case, you know. So maybe Brendan was kind of he didn't come at it from out of the blue. He probably heard other stories and tried to get involved himself. Who knows? But I feel like the silence from everybody does speak a lot. And again, Joe talking like that about her, you know, is a little bit rude. It's a little bit, you know, out of line. So it gives me the impression that some of those guys have said some things about her behind the scenes, or maybe stuff happens there. Who knows? You know, it is what it is. But anyway, regardless, that is me, man. It's been 2 hours. It's now 5:30 in the morning here in the UK. I've got to get to bed and whatnot. So, yeah, it's been a bit slow, innit? It feels like with the comedy stuff. Maybe it's the start of the year and everyone's kind of getting nervous and scared and whatnot, but nothing's really happened. I felt like maybe we'll have something happen maybe soon, hopefully. We need some new drama, man, because this is boring. I don't want to be talking about Bobby Lee and KHALYLA again. Like, it's just, I just don't care, really. I really don't care. Two people broke up. It happens all the time. But yeah, it feels like nothing's been happening really in the scene. It's been kind of quiet. But anyway, regardless of that, that has been the stream. if you are watching this and you can hear my voice, please like before you leave. Like before you leave. Like before. Or actually like when you come back and watch it. But whatever you do, make sure you like. That'd be greatly appreciated. And of course, spread the news with the subscribers. Because as part of my New Year's resolution, I'm aiming to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, it's a stretch goal. And like Brendan said, if you aim for the moon, you might land on the stars, right? As Brendan Shaw famously said. It's a real stretch goal. But I think I could do it. By December 31st of 2023, I want 50 subscribers on this blood clot channel, and hopefully I can get it. Who knows? It's a bit out there, a bit crazy, but who knows? So if you want to spread the love with this channel and you think somebody would like to hear what I have to say about this comedy stuff and whatnot and my nonsensical ramblings, please spread. That'd be greatly appreciated. And who knows? Maybe I will get there at the end. Who knows? Maybe I will get there at the end. Apart from that, big up everybody that's in the chat. Oh, Gling. Oh, big up Uche for the
I love
donation.
it when they call me Big Bopper. Thanks for the stream and holding down the chat as.
Big up Uche. Honestly, hold on. Can I go back to when this guy said gadooshed? Because I thought that was so cringe. Hold on. Let me go back to the bit where he said gadooshed. Where is it? Where is it? Let me hold on. Let me just go back to this bit. Big up Uche for the $11 donation. I appreciate you as always. Let me go back to this bit because I thought that was. Let me just before I leave because I just you made me think of it. When did this guy say good dudes? Because I thought that just sounded so dweeb. It sounded like when your dad says lit or something, right? Like let's see if we can find it.
Take it to the next level is insane. Believe that. What he does believe is that KHALYLA can be easily replaced by someone way better.
Let's see.
Which one's a sociopath? Yeah. Which one's pretending they like you? And which one just really likes funny guys? Mm-hmm. You know what's hilarious?
That KHALYLA is going to be mad when a few things to unpack. It was very clear really cared about what Joe Rogan thought of her. It was very clear.
Where is it?
Maybe KHALYLA was holding the next level is insane. It's a wild thing to say, and the reason why it's so wild is because it's
where is it?
He was, how good of a person he was, and that everybody should go see him live. Basically, he gave him the.
Come on, where is it?
Dude, I'm happy to see him happy.
Like I mentioned, I don't think she's going to be happy when she hears what Joe Rogan had to say, because Joe Rogan essentially went on a rant about how amazing Bobby Lee.
Okay, let me see if I can find the transcript quickly. Come on. Because he said good douche and it sounded so dorky. Let's hear this one more time. Oh, come on. Let's see what Eva said. It was it Gad? How are they gonna spell it here? Will they say Gad or they say Kadoosh? Oh, I can't find it. It doesn't come with transcript. It's annoying. I want to hear him say Gadoosh one more time. Come on. Give me Gadoosh.
Yeah.
And he's just a good dude. I'm happy to see him happy.
Like I mentioned, I don't think she's going to be happy when she hears, because now this is where things start to get very interesting.
He's a lot more free. I'm very happy for him. Yeah. You know, it's he's a great person. He really is a sweetheart of a guy. If you don't like Bobby Lee, man, I think that's on you. Yeah. I don't know how you cannot love that guy.
Well, you know what, Joe Rogan, two of your best friends in Brian Schaub. See, I did it twice there. Two of your best friends in Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen tried to bully him and tried to say he was behind the flipping firing the kids subreddit and the homeless cats and whatnot. So, you know, clearly two of your friends don't like the guy. They've got issues. So, you know, don't talk to us. Speak to them.
And about how amazing Bobby Lee was, how funny he was, how good of a person he was, and that everybody.
Where is it?
It was very clear that she only cared what Joe Rogan had to think about her and not what everybody else thought, including her fans, clearly. So Joe Rogan saying that Bobby Lee saying it's a wild thing to say. Then
You know what, man? This guy's too much of a dork. I don't fucking care, man. Fuck his gadoosh. Whatever. Next time, you know what I mean? I don't fucking care. I'll probably find a clip of it and be able to play it later. But anyway, that's me done, man. I'm done. I'm over this. Thanks again for tuning in as per usual. Like I said before, make sure you like the stream if you haven't already. Smash the like and everything. I appreciate every single one of you in the chat. Big up Dave H. Big up Uche as always. Big up Gerard Malarick. Big up Dark Web J, my guy. Big up Andrew W. Big up the One Under. Big up Amit Rosenberg. I'm assuming. Big up Graham S. Brunt Arms View. Everyone, chicken fingers. Love a bit of chicken finger. Dip that. Big up Severa Design, always coming through with the hot takes. I love the spicy hot takes from Severa Design. Keep those coming in. Your thoughts and views are not related to mine, or my thoughts it might be not related to yours either way. I don't curse like them, but keep them coming. Big up everybody that was here. Shades Cow, big up all of you, every single one of you. Blues Mama, many of you in the chat here. I appreciate you all, really do. And I'll see you guys again soon, innit? See you guys again soon. Don't be a stranger. And also I keep forgetting, I'm gonna put the Discord invite link in the chat. So if you're not in the Discord, join it. Nice little community there of people. Hang out, share links and stuff. There's things you want me to check out, of course, sub them in there. People always do that, and I'll check it and then, you know, add it to the show notes and whatnot that I want to